Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd also like to introduce to you Jack Lyons. He is from Troop 349. He attends Dakota High School, and he will be receiving his Eagle Scout Award. He is going to lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please all rise?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Jack, thank you.
Ms. Posey, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Bussino?
Here.
Trustee Krasinski?
Here.
Trustee Nevers?
Present.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Here.
Clerk Posey here. Supervisor Dunn?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Now we have the approval of the agenda items, and I know we have 2 or 3.
Yep, we have 3 proposed add-ons. 7A is a proposed add-on for a presentation by GFL Environmental. 32A is a proposed add-on under General Counsel, request to approve resolution regarding the purchase of 51540 and 51660 Romeo Plank Road, Macomb Township, Michigan. 33A, proposed add-on, request to approve Keith Christendalu for hire as part-time mechanical inspector. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to remove item number 34. Excuse me. Item number 34, because I was not allowed as a board member and management team member, was not given an opportunity to hear the tape prior to this meeting and try to rectify it. The union did not allow me to do that.
Support.
Can I have a roll call on that, please?
Okay. Are there any other additions or deletions to
Yes,
the agenda?
yes, Madam Chair. I would like to add agenda item number 36, which would read, vote to hire outside legal counsel to offer an investigative opinion on grievance number 19001.
Support.
I'm sorry. Tim, can you repeat that one more time, please, Mr. Boston?
I would like to make add an agenda item number 36, which would read, vote to hire outside legal counsel to offer an investigative opinion on grievance number 19001.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we going to add items like this again? We did last meeting.
Ms. Goodhue, if Madam Chair, I'd like to answer that question. Per the Township MTA policy, the meeting is finalized or the agenda is finalized at the meeting by the board. So business can be added onto an agenda up until the board approves the agenda. The recommended procedures are suggested that it's done prior to this, but MTA's statute indicates that the board approves the agenda at the meeting. So business can be added on at any time.
Okay, good to know. Thank
It's
you.
in the handbook.
Any other? I'm sorry, Tim, what was the number on that one?
It would be item number 36.
36. Thank you. Is there a motion then? Oh, I'm sorry. I do have something, and at the invitation of Ms. Posey and myself, Mr. Dan Dumas, who is the general manager of GFL, is here tonight, I think. Is he here? He might be caught in traffic, but he offered to come and explain the status of the garbage collection in the township. If he comes in the meantime, we will put that right before the presentation, or right after the presentations. That's all. All right, now we need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Mr. Buzzino, to approve the amended agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next, we have approval of the bills. As usual, there are 2 bill runs. If you wish an item removed, please indicate so at this time.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve both bill runs as presented.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Support.
supported by Ms. Smith to authorize payment of both bill runs. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. The approval of the previous meeting minutes from May 22nd are up for your approval. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Hearing none, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2019 as presented.
Motion by Ms. Posey,
Support.
supported by Mr. Krasinski to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. And the closed session minutes also need to be approved. Is there a motion for the closed minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2019.
I'll support that also.
Motion by Ms. Posey, seconded by Mr. Krasinski to approve the closed session minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. The consent agenda items are routine matters that frequently come before the board. If anyone wishes to discuss an item on the consent, please indicate so at this time.
Madam Chair, hearing nothing, I will move on to consent agenda items as presented.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Ms. Goodhue to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. I don't see anyone that came in, so we'll go on with public comments. This is on agenda items only. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, please come to the podium, state your name, and remember there is a 3-minute time limit.
Thank you, board members. Chuck Pierce, Union Steward for the Management Union, AFSCME 1917.43. Speaking relative to the removal of item 34, while we are not opposed to the removal as long as item 36 goes through, the reason for your removal of item 34 we believe is not valid. There is no requirement upon the union to provide you material for the hearing as stated in the collective bargaining agreement. We did, however, provide you with backup material, a full list and a range of items for your review under no guise that we had to. So item 36 goes through, that would be fine. We would acquiesce to that. If not, then we will have to speak with our union, determine what the next course of action for us would be. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Mahalski. Back here to talk about pickleball again. To Ms. Nevers, to Mrs. Dunn, Christy Posey, and Karen, thank you very much for your quick response to my emails concerning the 21-mile road development that was talked about last year. Sad to say, obviously, that's not going to happen, but I'm not going to get into that here. But thank you for your quick response. What I'd like to talk about is the 24-mile road in Foss Road Park development, where pickleball has now been incorporated into it. I was able to get a look at the plans that were furnished online and some rather disturbing things that I want to say that I looked at. First of all, we're showing tennis courts, and when I say we, Macomb Township is showing tennis courts to be part of this development, and it's 2 tennis courts. And from my standpoint, I'm looking at it as why are we including tennis courts? We have 16 tennis courts within Macomb Township right now. We have 8 at Dakota, 8 at Lance Cruz. You go to any of our local high schools, and there's normally 6 to 8 tennis courts that can be used. Currently, we talk about within the development plan that we're supposed to have 4 pickleball courts. Only on the plan, it only shows 3. I think if we utilize the space for the tennis courts and use those for pickleball courts, we can incorporate 6 to 8 different courts. Also, the courts that are currently shown on the Foss Park plan are shown as being east-west. Anyone who's a player of a sport, pickleball, tennis, we understand that east-west is not a good development because you're always looking to the sun, either one way or the other. courts that are normally developed are north-south, any type of environment. Right now is that part of the development also there's no seating by the courts. In other words, benches for basically, right now is a great example, is at Clinton Township, which has 6 courts, and you say, well, that's a lot of courts. This morning, is I've got pictures, is that all 6 courts are used, and 16 additional people are waiting to play. So there's 40 people that are out there waiting to play, waiting to participate in a sport that is growing within this nation. I think also is that as we look at Foss Park develop, depending upon what you do, whether it's a phase 1 or phase 2 of your plan, which varies by as much as 18 months, that if we do only option 1, I should say, not phase, option 1, then we must make sure that we include water and some restrooms that don't exist at that point in time. So I think right now the Foss Park plan has to be reviewed and it has to be really looked at closely for us to be able to do a good job for the pickleball community. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Ann Arnold, 48441 American Elm Drive. Speaking tonight on agenda item number 15. As a resident of the township and a homeowner adjacent to the property being considered for rezoning, I support development of property consistent with residential zoning and support the township's master plan. I would like to point out that the developer's proposal isn't consistent. It proposes building height structure to be a looming 50 feet, which is twice the height of any surrounding structure. And the situation gets worse. Per my review of all zones, I find that no matter which zone, R2, R2L, R2H, or CF, that the special land use details for housing for older persons states that the maximum height of any building shall be 85 feet. It's actually the housing for older persons provision that authorizes the structures inconsistent and far exceeding the surrounding residential zoning of 25 to 28 feet. My biggest concern is that the developer would retract his current proposal, which maxes at 50 feet, to build taller. And because once authorized, he could, under the special land use provision. And there would be nothing anyone or any governing body could do to stop it. There's an abundance of land available in the township where 50-foot buildings would neither obstruct nor violate. Please promote the 5 elderly persons residential developments that are being considered or are in progress. I understand that development of the property is inevitable. However, I beg the township's support in enforcing the master plan, limiting development in this area to 2 stories, and retaining the intent of the property and surrounding community within the residential 1 zoning. Thank you.
What was her name? Okay.
Kathy Moody, 47943 Lamplighter Trail. I'm also here to talk about number 15 on the agenda. This project must be stopped. It seems to be born of corruption, lies, and deceit. The primary object is very obvious. The wealthy big business builders already seated in Macomb to become wealthier at the expense of the established residents of Macomb. You are our elected officials, and you need to protect our interest and stop this project. This massive condominium development does not fit the ambience of the residential area of our township. Many residents have voiced their complaints at the Planning Commission, and their complaints are valid. We do have flooding issues, road congestion, and safety concerns for the 2 schools located on Romeo Plank. Our homes are our financial nest egg. Building a mass development of this nature, 3 stories, plus a story for the roof, and built-up elevation looming over our backyards will surely destroy our property values. No amount of smoke and mirrors from the builders can erase this. Their retention ponds to supposedly mitigate the flooding problems will only work for the condo development and will only make our matters worse. The homeowners surely do not want back walls of huge condo units to replace that forest that presently exists, because that will come down. The prior Planning Commissioner, Patrick Mayer, and many of the members of the Planning Commission board seemed to be siding directly with the builders during the first 2 meetings. Mr. Mayer stated, as far as he was concerned, there were no flooding issues, then the water from the river is confined, and the water from the river is confined to the river. A completely false statement. Come to my backyard, you'll see where that water is. He also sided with the builder, stating that the residents of this mass condo development would not affect the traffic on Romeo Plank, primarily because the residents are seniors and don't go anywhere during the traffic flow. I'm a senior. Some of you look like you're seniors. Do you sit at home? No, you're out and you're at meetings. This will house like 800 people, which is more than a residential development will house. So it's another ludicrous statement. During the first meeting, the Planning Commission board seemed to have concerns over the height of the proposed condominiums, and the commission split with a vote of 3 for the proposal and 3 against. One member was absent, which warranted another meeting to allow a tie-breaking vote. During the next meeting, Director Mayer led the meeting, stating his full approval of the development and granting not only the 3-story variance, but allowed the builders to build up to 8 stories if he so desired. 2 members then changed their vote, which was already a public record. The builder's representative, Mr. Izzo, stated that the groundbreaking on this project actually began 4 years ago. How can this be if the township has not yet fully approved the project? Mr. Mayor has now resigned, and his actions should be reversed. You depend on the Planning Commission's decisions and everything. I don't think that this was properly investigated. There was clearly collusion between the builders and his office. This condominium development is not wanted, not needed, and not good for our township. As a suggestion, leave the wetlands alone. We were told that nobody could build there, that it is wetlands. How can you just move wetlands to let development come into play? And it would be best to allow for mercantile.
Please wind up your...
I am. 2 more sentences. As a suggestion, leave the wetlands alone and allow for the small mercantile structures would be a much better for the wetland area, the traffic flow, the township, and the tax base. Please make this happen. Thank you for your consideration.
Neil Kaffenberger, 46684 Fox Run Drive. Basically, I'm here about what the park presentation is going to be happening today. Since I'm seeing now that pickleball courts are going to be at that park, I've already talked to Sal about it, and I just want this on record, is that what's going to end up happening behind at 21 Mile Road. Is there anything planned? Anything going to happen? Please keep residents informed that live there. That's all I ask. And as of agenda item number 15, you know what? Macomb Township needs senior assistant living. That's one thing they don't have around here. They need it. You know, people complain about the traffic and all that stuff. You know what? Yes, there's traffic. You know, it's just during peak times. You know, they complain about the traffic getting to school. Well, if the road supposedly, what I'm hearing rumors on in 2024, Romeo Plank being widened, it's still going to be a chaos there because of everybody going into one general area, which is the schools. It's still going to be traffic. So you're not going to be able to beat traffic, period. As of for like height, what they're saying with the 58, you know what? Emmanuel Lutherans, their steeple. That's well beyond 3 stories. So I'm in favor for this assistant living complex, and thank you.
Hello, my name is John Wilson. I reside at 19756 Vine Avenue, and I am a USAPA ambassador for pickleball in the Macomb area. I also assist Kathy Western to help manage the pickleball at the Macomb Rec Center for the seniors that play there in the morning. I didn't think I would be here before you again as I was last August. I thought this was all pretty much done and over with, but I was very elated after the vote, and of course now that I find out that it's not going to be within 1.5 miles of my house, it's going to be a little farther away, I can live with that. But we need to have a serious discussion as to the number of pickleball courts and such. Of course, the cost was prohibitive for that site, and I can see why that was nixed. Of course, I told everyone about the proposed pickleball courts that we would be playing at 21 Mile Road site by the end of the summer. Now I have to listen to people at the rec center that all this has changed and they want to know why. So I have to go back to them here on Friday and explain to them as to what's going to go on with that. Some have suggested that they would like to see the courts over near the football and soccer fields on 25 Mile Road where they have the summer concerts. They already have a parking lot there. It's convenient because of the fact that you have the Township pickleball already there. This seems very logical to me also. By having the courts at the park on 24 Mile Road, we feel that we are an afterthought. We are added in, you might say, at the last minute, and from the original site that was slated. When I saw the plans for the pickleball courts now proposed, I couldn't believe my eyes. There are 3 courts aligned, of course, the wrong way, as John pointed out. I noticed that right away. Even the volleyball courts are aligned the wrong way also. So I hope they're really looking at those site plans. I think tennis courts are not needed there. As John's already stated, we have already outdoor tennis courts. We do not have, in a town or a township of 80,000 people, we have 0 outdoor pickleball courts. I go to Clinton Township, they have 10. We need some. Already at the rec center, we have at least 24 to 35 people there that play. Many times we have to curtail and limit the number of points that they can score out on the court because of so many people wanting to play. Here's a list of the things that I saw when I went to Clinton Township and looked and observed their pickleball courts. Obviously, we need netting around the courts to affect because of the wind that affects the ball. A covering. What I would suggest is not cutting down every tree that they see. Trees provide shade. They break the wind so that there is a suitable pickleball play.
Please wind up, sir.
Oh,
Your
okay.
3 minutes is over.
All right. So if there's anything that I can do in terms of my input into the development and the plans, I would be more than willing to share my expertise in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Blossom, 47643 Lamplighter Trail. I'm addressing agenda number 15. When we bought our house, we were also told they could never build behind us. Our neighbors were told the same. When it rains, it floods the proposed building area. It extends up well into the field. I mean, I have video of this. It's terrible. Not sure how this is not considered a floodplain. Now they want to build there, so where will the water go? I mean, will you guarantee that the retention ponds will work? That if they don't, is my basement going to be fixed? Right now, we have abundant wildlife, deer, turkeys, and many waterfowl. What effect is the building going to have on the river itself? The sign says ours to protect, and it is anything but. Was runoff from construction factored in? Also, we were told all the trees and shrubs on the side are being torn down. For us, that is a nightmare, like living in a fishbowl. What about light pollution from numerous lights, exhaust from vehicles, not to mention people constantly parading by on the walking path? Do you have any idea what hell you're about to bestow on all of us? Do you even care?
I'm Keith Rumble. I live at 47643 Lamplighter Trail as well. And I just want to agree with most of what people have said, that this is a terrible idea, a terrible location. I drive all over our township. There's many places where this could go, not behind people's houses where I have to look out my back door and people will be able to look into my house. I mean, I don't know where you folks live, but I'm assuming you don't live on Lamplighter Trail. And I'm sure you don't have people 3 stories up looking down into your house. We have children who live with us. Who knows, there could be older gentlemen that would find inappropriate things to be scoping into the house. Who knows? We live in a crazy world. That's all I have to say. I'm completely against this proposal. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Grillo. I reside at 48181 American Elm Drive. I'm here on the item number 15. I'm also against the project that's being built over there on Romeo Plank. I bought the property there. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in this property because of I wanted wetlands. I wanted to look out my backyard to see trees, not rooftops. Now, I know there's some people here they're talking about these parks, recreation parks, and that. I'm here representing the people that live in this neighborhood, homeowners that live right by the river. They're looking behind. They don't want to see flooding. The water comes up very often. Every time it rains, you can come. I got pictures. I got movies and show how far up this rain is coming up. It's just a matter of time. Now, if they're going to build their elevated property on the other side, on the west side of the river, it's going to start flooding more into the east banks of the river. Who's going to stop it? Is there a guarantee from these developers? All these developers are the same developers that built these subdivisions. All of a sudden now they're going to build a project that's going to go against us. What is this? What's going on here? The Planning Commission, did they sell us out? I hope you're not going to sell us out. I hope you're going to listen to us, and I hope you look into this matter more closely and be on our side. We elected you people. We want you to represent us. And I have nothing else to say. Thank you very much.
Gasper Navarra, 15762 Lamont Drive. Last August, I sat through a meeting here where you did approve, the board approved pickleball courts, at least 4. And also we had planners, and we had the fire chief here, talked about a bridge, talked about a way to get in and out. First of all, I'd like to know what is the plans for that property. Is it going to be a dog park too, or is it not? And second of all, I would like to ask a direct question. Are there any plans for additional courts besides the ones being planned at Foss Road? I have not looked at the plans as John Mahalski and John Wilson did, so I can't really speak to that. But I would like to know if we're going to at least have the 4 that this board already had approved. I am a pickleball player, and we do have to have courts in this area for the pleasure and for the enjoyment of people in this township. So I would like to ask this board to consider not only the new ones at Foss, but also additional, or I'd like to ask, are there plans for other courts besides the 3 that are being on the board right now? Thank you.
My name is Lynn Brykes. I'm at 19290 Lamplighter Trail. I'm here to address item 15. And I realize the only item that you are voting on is the rezoning. And I am fully aware that your former planning director has indicated that it met the criteria for rezoning. But what I would like this board is to take a real critical look as this project goes through the approval process and to look at the impact and how they're going to handle the stormwater. We experience severe flooding right now. We're very concerned that this is actually going to exacerbate our current flooding. There is also another proposed development that is going through the approval process. That's the property next to Waldenburg Park. This is the same concern. We are the same homeowners. I think you owe it to the existing homeowners to really take a critical look at this and to guarantee, if these projects are approved, that it will not have a detrimental impact and create and further exacerbate the flooding. Thank you.
Hello, Jay Lamke, 46759 Mill Point. Couple different areas. First, to the senior complex. I live in Macomb Township. I'm 68 years old. I'm about getting tired of cutting grass, shoveling snow, and I will be looking for a senior citizen place. And I'd like it to be in Macomb Township, but where my doctor is, where I know the stores, where my grandchildren live nearby. And I understand the concern of these people, but it's just NIMBY. It's not in my neighborhood. In my backyard, it's going to be somewhere. It's going to be someone's backyard. But we need to have some senior citizen housing in Macomb Township. My other thing is on the budget under legal, it says that projected through the end of June is $106,000 for fees. Budget request is $241,000. I just don't understand that. What that money's there for. Are we expecting to lose something real big? That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Carole Howell, 19258 Lamplighter Trail, Lot 185. I'm going on the agenda 15, and I do know for a fact, because every development that has been put through in our subdivision, we flood more and more. And if this was any of your homes that they were going to be building this by, you would not do it, because you're not sitting there seeing the flooding that's coming up in our yards. And we will end up losing our homes, and there are numerous homes that get flooded. I don't care if they put a senior citizen in there. They do not need as many as they're putting it in, and leave the wetland area alone. If they want to put the senior citizen place there, that's fine. Do not build where it floods. Do not fill that in. They want to fill it in. They also want to put a 5-foot berm with trees. Where is that water from the raging river going to go when it floods? Guess where? Not to them. It's going to come to us. And are you guys going to guarantee, and is the developer going to guarantee that our homes are not going to be destroyed from this? That's all I have to say on this, and I hope like heck you really consider, if they develop it, that's fine. Put them up further to the road and not in the wetland area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joseph O'Connor. I work for the Michigan Association of Firefighters and represent the part-time dispatchers. I'm here to talk about agenda number 29, where you want to subcontract dispatching to the Macomb Central Dispatch. I looked at this. I just briefly looked at it. I just was made aware of it, that it was coming up tonight. I see two huge negative impacts on this. First of all, you're going to lay off township employees. And secondly, the cost of this thing appears to be pretty significant. It looks like it's about a $1.6 million deal for 3 years, and the payroll for your dispatchers for that same time period is about $120,000 per year, $360,000. Your difference of about $1.3 million. Please look at, are these services that you're going to pay that kind of money for worth it? You currently operate, and I haven't heard of any huge issues with the dispatchers. I would think that we could take that money, keep the dispatchers in-house, keep people employed in this township, and if there is any needs, instead of spending that $1.3 million, use it to train the dispatchers, the firefighters, and purchase equipment for them. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mark Grabo. My address is on file with the clerk. Actually, you're going to speak a couple things on your agenda this evening. First of all, I'm disappointed and just astounded at the way you guys are so good at attempting to cover things up and hide things. The general public didn't get the whole sense of what went on. You guys talk about adding on, taking off, adding on, taking off. Roger called for a roll call vote on item 34. He wanted it tabled because he didn't hear the information. He wasn't privy to it. This is the meeting, you're privy to it. You don't get it before that. You and I sat on this board, Roger, we know how it works. How many times did it not surprise us in the back room? It's the way it is. So, with that being said, I ask you very cautiously to tread extremely lightly. We all understand what violations of the Open Meeting Act happen. And let's be cautious at what you guys put away or hide. If people are asking for things to be done in public, that's for the benefit of the residents, the employees, the staff, whoever it is. Just be cautious. Be extremely cautious. A couple other things. I'm listening to the residents this evening. I didn't get much time to read through all of this. Talking about a large senior complex. I'm all for it. But it may not be the right location. Miss Dunn, you insisted on having this park at 24 Mile and Foss Road. Sounds like a great place for a senior center. Put it up. Because you're sitting on 130 acres, or 120 acres, and don't look at me funny, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have 30 acres that's hidden right here, attached to Town Park, or Town Hall. There's another 90 acres that we, as the township, own, sitting on top of the dump. We could put a lot of pickleball places in place. We could do a lot of improvements with that property. There's nothing else that can be built there. Let's get with the program. You're actually taking tax-based property for the New Haven schools out of 24 and Foss area and turning it into a park, which means they're going to lose more again in revenue. You guys need to really get your head out of the sand and get with the program. Last but not least, legal fees. The gentleman brought it up. Legal fees. Again, people, when I sat in that chair, we spent $180,000 max. And we were fighting a lot of legal battles at that time. Now, you guys, that's just the department head's cost. Let's get with the program, people. It's time to clean this place up.
Anyone else?
Since I'm here, I might as well speak. Mary McSherry, 48051 Lamplighter Trail. It's going to be in my backyard. That's number 15. I am not, as Carole said, opposed to a senior center at all. I'm not. I am opposed to it being so huge. There's no reason for that. We can have a nice senior center in that same area, but closer to the roadway and a much smaller scale. I can't afford flooding. Sorry, I'm a teacher. I have a very limited income. I can't even afford little household repairs, much less a flood in my basement. And yes, it will happen. Please oppose the rezoning.
Anyone else? Very well. We will move on then to the, I'm sorry.
Did that Mr. Dumas come in here? One gentleman walked in. Are you Mr. Dumas?
GFL. No.
No, okay.
I
I'm
don't
just
think so.
making sure he didn't walk in and nobody.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, thanks.
Very well, we have on, to adopt the resolution honoring Jack Lyons for attaining the rank of Eagle Scout. Ms. Posey.
Members of the board, at a regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees in the Township of Macomb, County of Macomb, State of Michigan, held in Township Hall in said township on the 12th day of June 2019, at 7 p.m., the following preamble and resolution were offered. Whereas Jack started his scouting career with Pact 149, he then joined Troop 349, and while in Cub Scouts, he worked his way through Tiger to Webelos 2 rank and received the Super Achiever Award for earning all 20 activity pins, and was also awarded the Arrow of Light. Whereas Jack Lyons continued his scouting career with Boy Scout Troop 349, in addition to his Eagle Scout rank, where he has distinguished himself by achieving 33 merit badges, a bronze and gold palm, the 50 Miler Award, the Bishop Baraga Medal, and the Chief Pontiac Trail Medal. And whereas Jack Lyons attended Dakota High School and graduated on June 9th, he was a member of the National Honor Society, participated in numerous extracurricular activities, and was awarded several scholarships for his hard work. He will be attending the Lee Honor College at Western Michigan University in the fall and will study chemistry and physics. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Township of Macomb, County of Macomb, Michigan, speaking on behalf of all Macomb Township citizens as follows. That by these presents, the Macomb Township Board of Trustees recognizes the dedication, commitment, and personal sacrifices Jack Lyons has made to obtain the rank of Eagle Scout. And be it further resolved that the Macomb Township Board of Trustees hereby commends and publicly extends its congratulations to Jack Lyons on his elevation to Eagle Scout and further extends its best wishes to Jack Lyons in his future endeavors. Now therefore, the Macomb Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaims Sunday, June 16th, 2019, Jack Lyons in Macomb Township. Congratulations, Jack Lyons, if you will.
Congratulations, it's a wonderful honor.
Thank you.
Great job, great job.
Thank you.
Get the rest of the people too.
Congratulations.
We meal for a good time.
Very well, I do not see Mr. Dumas, but I'm gonna ask one more time if he's in the audience. No. Okay. Next, we have the presentation regarding the proposed 24-mile and Foss Road Park. Mr. DiCaro, are you gonna handle this? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members. I'm here tonight with our engineer, Jim Van Tiffelen, and Jack Knowles, landscape architect from Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber. Would like to make a presentation regarding the proposed park, Foss Road Park, we'll call it right now. We have presentation of the concept plan, the timing, and the cost. I'll turn it over to Jack, and feel free to ask us questions as we're going along.
Sure.
Great. Good evening. Pleased to be here tonight. What we're looking at tonight is a result of about 12 months worth of work with Sal and other staff members. We've had a number of meetings. We've had a number of different variations of the plan prior to this. And during that time, one of the things was the programming for the park. That was developed by staff. We really took that programming and tried to input it into the park, and this plan is a representation of that. Before we get into this too deeply, Sal mentioned this is a concept plan. That's correct. It's preliminary. It's really meant to show the major features of the park, the circulation, parking, the primary use areas. Details such as site furnishings, benches, picnic tables, refuse containers, things like that are not shown on this plan. They're anticipated. They'll be included when we get into more detailed planning, and they're also accounted for in the budget numbers. So I think you're all familiar with the site. It's northeast corner of Foss Road and 24 Mile. It's a 41-acre parcel overall. Of that 41 acres, about 28 acres is developable. The eastern and northeastern quadrant of the property is regulated wetland. The wetland extent, it's hard to see, but it's shown by a dashed line through here. It actually extends into this area just where the beach volleyball courts are. We plan on mitigating that portion and filling that area. So 13 acres are or roughly are regulated wetlands. There are two vehicular access points to the entries to the park, one off Foss, one off a 24-mile. We have an entrance road that's curvilinear from both directions. That's sort of twofold. It's not only aesthetically pleasing and soothing, but it's also a traffic calming device to keep the speed of the cars down. Both drives culminate at a central circular parking area. Try and get the mouse to work here. Here we go. Again, that's a traffic calming measure. It's aesthetically pleasing. And we have about 100 parking spaces around that circle. This is not working. There's also a small parking area up in the northern section of the park. We have about 60 spots in that parking lot, and that's really intended to serve the dog park area and the one pavilion and beach volleyball courts in that area. There's really the central feature, and I think certainly the most visible and sort of the signature feature of the park is the splash pool. And if I get the mouse to work, we get down here, and that's in this area. That's intended for tots through early teens. It's a 0-inch water depth. It'll include interactive water features. There'll be gentle mists for the younger kids and more high volume spray jets and dumping elements for the older kids. It'll be accessible for all users. It'll be some sort of hard surface. The exact surface hasn't been determined yet. It could be concrete, which is sort of a standard surface in those pools, or there are other acrylic surfaces that are beginning to be used also. Just on the north side of the splash pool is the park building. That would include a small administration office, include restrooms, a concession area, and storage areas for equipment for the park and for the splash pool. Also, directly in that area is the children's play area right up here to the north side of the building. That's really intended to accommodate children from about 2 to 12. It'll be a multi-purpose play equipment. It'll include climbing, swinging, sliding, crawling apparatus. Certainly there'll be one major play element feature in that. From the park building, we have an east-west sort of walkway here across the parking areas that terminates here in a pavilion. We're calling this the major pavilion, pavilion number 1. It's the largest, and it would include bathrooms. So it'll service the tennis and pickleball courts, the general play area, as well as the pavilion area. Speaking of tennis courts and pickleball courts, we are showing 2 tennis courts and 3 pickleball courts. However, if you go up here in the notes, we state 4 pickleball courts. So we have, and actually 4 are anticipated. It's great that you have a vocal pickleball community. It's great to have people that are active in the sport in the community. And certainly we welcome any input from them relative to this facility and encourage them to coordinate that through SAL. We recognize the orientation of the pickleball courts is incorrect. And in my recent research, I found that you can actually, I witnessed this firsthand, you can fit 4 pickleball courts in the area of a tennis court. So when it's decided how many are needed and what direction you want to go, we can certainly accommodate that in that area. There are 3 other pavilions. And I say pavilion, we're talking overhead roof structures, open air, that are used for picnic events. They're up in the northeast corner. There's one here, another one here, and another one here. Those are located sort of around a central open area used for field sports, frisbee, throwing a baseball, throwing a football, soccer, and that's also the same circumstance or area down here is planned for that. In the northwest corner, we have the dog park. This is a rather large dog park. It's about an acre in size. It's pretty good size for a dog park. It'll accommodate dogs of all sizes. It'll be divided up into different areas. It'll include a agility course, and of course it'll include perimeter fencing and perhaps other interior fencing to separate some of the areas. We have shown 2 beach volleyball courts. Orientation also has been shown east-west, not north-south. It takes up the same area. We just got to turn them 90 degrees. Again, that was in the program. And sort of surrounding the whole park, we have this perimeter walkway. It's about 8/10 of a mile all the way around. So it'll provide park users and people coming from other areas, and when this is eventually planned to connect into the township pathway system, include them the ability to walk, run, bike, and so forth. We think it's we almost made a mile on it, but we are just short. Does anyone have any questions on the plan? We can go into the schedule and we can get into the costs, but in terms of the plan itself, would this be a good time to take some questions?
I don't have a question. The property that's mostly toward the east
Yes.
is vacant. And it's probably pretty close to unbuildable because of all the floodplain issues
This
and
piece.
the wetlands.
Yes, that wetland line, Madam Supervisor, extends sort of on a diagonal like that across that property, I believe.
And the other parcels that are farther towards Foss Road, there are 3 homes in that area.
Correct.
And most of them are closer to the road rather than in the back.
They are.
So the traffic and the activities will not disturb them.
Yeah, we've intentionally tried to keep the higher intensity areas away from those homes.
Yes.
So what's backing up to those homes is really open field areas. Again, frisbee, soccer, baseball, whatever, in those areas, which will be yes, there'll be active areas, but it's not the intensity with a pavilion there or a splash pad there or tennis courts.
Yes, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, actually, that's where we had the tennis courts originally, and I believe it was you who wanted to move to the north.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, I don't have a question either, but and you have a little bit more, I think, to present, but thank you for what you're doing. Everybody knows that I am not afraid to speak my mind at all.
Good.
And one of the toughest jobs I've had is to hide our park plans. And for many reasons, we can't speak about it all the time. And I'm just very excited to see this is a plan, and I think more to come about what we have planned for parks, and that's about all I can say right now. But I'm excited that you're up here presenting this, and again, I think there's more to come. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Please go on.
Okay, so we'll talk about schedule. We have sort of 2 options here. One would be to build this in a single phase, so build it all at once. The upside with that is it's a little less costly to do it that way. Doing it in 2 phases, you have double mobilization. You just have duplicity in a number of areas. The downside is it's you're about a year and a half away from putting a shovel in the ground. There's 18 months of surveys, design, permitting, building, and then negotiating a contract and going into construction. If you did it in 2 phases, so that puts us, starting construction roughly October of next year. If you do it in 2 phases, we can get construction started a lot earlier. So on the plan, we've shown phase 1, which would include the tennis and pickleball courts, this much of the entrance drive, this parking area, and the dog park. There are no restrooms as part of that phase. The problem with including restrooms in that phase, is there's no sewer in this area. And so part of the big picture is we've got to drag sewer from about a quarter mile to the west to this site and then up Foss Road. In addition, we've got to do a water main loop from 24 mile through the site and then looping over to Foss. Those are big costs and time consuming. So if we don't have to do that work in the first phase, we can get construction going. We could start the design work next month, surveys and design, and we could looking at putting a shovel in the ground in May of next year for phase 1. Then the second phase would just piggyback on that, and late 20 we'd start construction in June of 21. So those are the two options you have to mull over and deal with. On the costs, that here. If we do it all in one phase, the hard costs are 6.6 million, and your soft costs are about 1.65 million, for a total of 8.25 million for the whole park. If we break that in two phases, it's roughly a $200,000 difference. It's a $200,000 upcharge for the remobilization and, again, the duplicity of certain things within the work scope. That's where we are.
Wonderful, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Sal, any chance of getting any grants on this?
We can always put in for a grant, absolutely, but most of the grants are for obtaining the land rather than developing the land.
Okay, so there,
It's not,
even
out
the
of possibility.
Yeah, even Parks and Rec, I mean, the parks,
DNR is who.
DNR, I mean,
who would send it to
yeah,
Correct.
would they look at, something like this, or you don't know yet?
Well,
We'd
we've
submit it
missed
then.
the cycle, obviously, for this year. That was April 1st, so
Right.
next April will be the first time you could reapply.
Okay,
But we can
thank
look
you.
into that.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Sal, if the residents who are passionate about the pickleball courts, if they had any concerns or suggestions, may they go through you?
Oh, absolutely.
In turn to get through
They
the
do.
developers? Great, thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, if I may. I would just like to address a few of the issues that were brought forward from the podium. Tennis courts were brought up 2 times, and it indicated that we had, I think they said 16 throughout the township, but those are dedicated to the schools, if I'm not mistaken. So if the schools have tennis teams or activities scheduled on those courts, our residents aren't able to utilize those courts at that time, correct?
That's correct.
So these would be the first.
Township owns no tennis.
Okay, so this would be the first set of tennis courts that the township would own that the residents could use at any time.
That is correct.
When will we get to the details with regards to northwest, east, south, how the courts are supposed to be aligned correctly, and or if we should consider increasing the amount of pickleball courts? Since we don't have any plans, we're already out to about 2022. We don't have anything going on before then to increase pickleball courts in the township as of right now. Maybe we might want to consider increasing from 4 to 6, something like that. When would we get into those details?
Well, the decision in terms of how many pickleball courts to go with is really a programming decision. That's a township decision. Once you make that decision, you need to relay that to us. We can amend this plan to accommodate that, and then we'll get into more finite plans after that.
Okay, so this plan currently, the way it's laid out, do we have room to increase the pickleball courts should we choose to go that path?
Yeah, where we show 3, that could actually accommodate 4 in that spot. And then if you, I mean, it all depends on how many tennis courts you want, how many pickleball courts you want. So that decision needs to be made, and then we can see how we can accommodate it.
Okay. So it was also questioned if we could utilize the football and soccer fields near Macomb Corners. I know when everyone sees vacant land, everybody has an idea for it. Could you explain, as the Parks and Rec Director, what those fields currently are utilized for, and is there any possibility of putting anything there in a temporary basis?
I don't believe so. Right now, we have the Mustangs and lacrosse play there. There's obviously no restroom facilities. I don't know that you would want to invest the kind of money for a temporary courts. We have a bigger plan up the road. Again, I don't want to get into all the plans of what we have, but we do have a plan for that area. It's also been brought to my attention by the rec center west of the parking lot. The problem with that, we don't own that property. That's not our property. So because people see a vacant land doesn't mean it's ours and we can develop it. So but we do have plans for that area on 25.
Okay. I just want to address the 21-mile area. As excited as I was to offer this as an amenity to the township and to the pickleball community, at the time that we had to make a decision, we had, I think, 3 options as to something that could go in that property. At that time, we weren't in a position to be able to plan for 24 and Foss. Since that decision was made, this property has now become available to us to develop. And in my opinion, as all it is, I believe the plan for 24 and Foss is a beautiful plan for your activity. It will provide you with restrooms. It's an atmosphere that's included. You'll have better parking. You'll be able to walk or ride a bike in addition to pickleball. It was, when we were looking at 21 Mile Road, it was almost like we were making a decision at that property at that time, but it wasn't ideal. This works. I think it would offer you as a community and as residents more. And I hope that we have some other ideas for 21 and behind the fire station that might not be as expensive, but something that we can offer the residents as an amenity. So.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chair, to keep going with pickleball, I've said this once before. I look at some statistics that I saw a statistic that more people are playing pickleball than high school football right now in the United States. So we did make this decision to put pickleball courts in. So now we're saying, okay, maybe we'll transfer that to this, maybe 2021, maybe 2022. So I guess what I'm asking you is do you think we could get pickleball courts sooner than 2021 or 2022?
I don't think that he addressed that already, I think.
Yeah. If you do this in 2 phases, we could put shovels in the ground in May of next year.
Perfect. That is based on what we voted on, and you didn't vote on it, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but based on what we voted on, that would be ideal to get the pickleball courts in sooner than later. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Madam Chair, if I may. Sal, what's between the use of people playing pickleball compared to tennis? The pickleballers are only there during the morning hours, is that correct?
That's correct. Well, that's
okay,
that's the only time it's offered is in the morning.
Okay, and then what happens to that piece in the afternoon?
It's becomes regular gymnasium for our other programs.
No, excuse me, I'll rephrase it. In this park, what do I do with the 4 pickleballers that are out there right now?
They'd be out there all day. They would have it all day.
They will use it all day?
Absolutely. It'll be available till
okay.
dusk.
And from what part is it going to be starting in the second quarter through the third quarter?
As far as usage?
Yes.
I would suspect they will use it anytime the weather's warm. They'll play.
Okay.
Out there, yeah, they'll use it. Now we'll still have the option of them coming indoors at the rec center.
Correct.
During the winter.
Okay, and as far as tennis, what has been also, I know we don't have any here, but you going to some of your seminars on tennis, how often is that being used?
Well, we get people not as vocal as the pickleballers, but we get a lot of people who ask us about tennis because, again, it is not an amenity that we provide to our residents through the township.
Okay. And the ground that the pickleball is using, what is the substance that's going to be there? Is it going to be asphalt? What is it going to be?
Yeah, it'd be asphalt with there's a lot of different toppings, I mean, acrylic toppings that they put on tennis and or pickleball
It'd be
courts.
very similar to the Clinton Township ones. That's what we based them off of.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You mentioned that if we did phase one, there wouldn't be any restrooms. What would you do? Would you bring in porta potties or something at that point?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It wouldn't be ideal, but for the time
Until
being,
the time
absolutely.
being. Okay.
Madam Chair, one more comment. I am excited that we're talking about tennis courts and pickleball. High school gym classes have pickleball now, okay? I'm a high school teacher. They actually have pickleball there. And my wife played tennis in college, and we go over to May Stacker and Shelby Township, and we wait for those courts. So I think both of these things are positive for our residents. You know, when we sit up here and make decisions, we got to make decisions for everybody in our township. And I'm excited that tennis and pickleball's on the table right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
It was something that we're all going to look forward to. Right now, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess.
Before you do, Madam
Yes.
Chair, we probably need some action to move forward with the plan, so to take it to the next phase.
Oh, with regards to whether phase one, phase two?
Well, that and
What I would recommend that you accept the plan, the concept plan, as the framework for developing the detailed park plans. And then we obtain a proposal from FDCH for them to actually start the design work so that we can get this ball rolling.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, they talked about a couple plans. The one phase had pickleball, breaking ground next May. That's the plan I would like. Do we have to have a motion to accept that phase?
Yes, if that's the board's intent is to do this in 2 phases, then make that part of the motion as well.
Okay. Madam Chair, if I may, again, if we make it in 2 phases, you're saying the difference between the two is going to be $2 million?
No, it's going to be 200,000.
Okay, fine, because you had given us 2 prices of 8.3 or 6.6, and I was just wondering what the difference was on that.
No, the 6.6 and the 6.9, those are the hard costs.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but the 8.2 and 8.4 are your costs entirety, hard costs and soft costs.
Got it. Okay, that's what I wanted
sorry.
to understand. That's all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone like to make a motion then?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to start the phase 1 and give them the authority to start the engineering prospects. Jim, is that good enough to do it that way?
Motion by Mr. Krasinski.
Close enough.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Buzzino.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. The motion carries. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. 5-minute recess, please. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. We will now have a public hearing for the 2019-2020 budget. I will open the public hearing. It is 8:19. Ms. Smith, do you want to take us through this, please?
Yes, good evening. In front of you tonight, you will find the 2019-2020 preliminary budget. And if you turn to page I, you will find the summary of the 12 funds that are included in this budget. The general fund, the fire operating fund, public improvement fund, fire improvement fund, building authority, and the building authority all reflect a shortfall for the upcoming year. Whereas the Park and Rec Fund, Park and Rec Revolving Fund, Law Enforcement Fund, Municipal Roadway Fund, Fire Pension Fund, Retiree Healthcare, and Water and Sewer Fund each exhibit a surplus. The detailed items that support those figures are located on pages 1 through 39. And displayed on page II are the 2019 anticipated millage rates that should be set at the next public hearing on June 26th, along with their projected revenues of each using the taxable values for March 2019. At this time, I'd like to invite any comments, questions, or suggested changes that you may have.
Thank you. Anyone?
Madam Chair, if I may, on page 1, under property taxes and fees, you're going, there's a $67,000 increase from 18-19 budget to 19-20. Though, that's not just property taxes. I mean, that's just the fees, right? Property taxes, I think, would be more.
They're projected to go up about 100,000, but I budgeted about 65,000 more,
Okay.
just in case, to
Okay.
be on the cautious side.
All right, understand. Okay, on page 5, there I see under, this would be for elections for Miss Posey. Under hers, I see yours is only increasing by $30,000. Is that enough?
Yeah, actually, we pulled all the costs from 2016 with presidential elections and hosting and administering 3 elections.
Really, that's all?
Yep, we cost compared to everything and then adjusted our budget accordingly.
I thought it'd been more. That's the reason why I
Yeah,
looked
I
at.
appreciate your concern, but we pulled all of 2016 to ensure that we did cover all the expenses since we will be administering more elections than usual.
Okay, the other one is on page 7, which is under the roads and streets, the street lighting that we're going up. And I was curious, is this probably could be a question for Mr. Van Tiffelen. Is on the street lighting, is this some of the lighting that some of the people that have the lights within their subs that we are paying for?
Yes, that's included in that number.
Is that? Okay.
And then on page 2, in the revenues, there's a line item for what the treasurer collects on taxes as a reimbursement in those subdivisions.
Okay.
So not for all of it, but for the
Right.
ones in the subdivisions.
And eventually, somewhere down the line, we will be coming up with a new schedule for the people that have been paying $1 at their, I'm just gonna give an example, that you've been paying $1 for their street lights, and it should really be $2 or $2.50 or $3 that the township has been paying for some time. So just to make them aware of that, that is gonna happen.
Anyone else?
Page 8.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. That's all I have. I'm sorry. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Kuzminski just brought up a point that some subdivisions or some neighborhoods may experience an increase. Do we have a list of the neighborhoods that are going to experience an increase so we can get this
I
out
have
to
a
them?
list of the ones that are put on the tax bills. I don't have a list of any increases that I've been given. I think that's a project engineering's working on.
We're currently working on that. It's quite an undertaking, trying to identify what subs are paying for what. We have to go through every agreement that we have. It's a lot of work. We're almost through it. I anticipate something this summer, bringing it back to the board.
So we'll all get that as board members.
Yes.
All of us will get that and, okay.
For sure.
Thanks.
It may mean that we have to amend the special assessment districts that we have out there to adjust the price.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Van Tiffelen, do you anticipate that before the winter taxes? What?
Yeah, the goal would be to have it sometime this summer, so you guys can, redo your numbers before you have to send it out. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
This is a public hearing. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board on the budget.
Madam Chair, if I may, until someone comes up. We did have a resident or two that asked questions about the legal fees, the increase on the budget, and I apologize, I'm trying to read from my phone because my laptop went down. They were referencing, the question they had was, I believe, the total estimate for 6/30/2019 it was 102,516, and then the current 2018-19 budget, it is increasing to 241,50. Is that correct? Am I reading it right?
I think they were reading the total for, there's 3 lines under the legal fees. So the actual
Madam Chair, if I may, what page are you on, Stacy?
I'm sorry, page 6.
Okay, thank you.
Under legal fees, kind of in the middle. The estimated actual is going to be $102,874 for this year. And next year is budgeted to be $250,145.
And then, did the department head give you the reasons for the increase?
No.
It's not an increase, it's the same number.
Oh, okay,
The budgeted amount is the same as
Okay,
this year's
gotcha.
budget. They
Okay.
were under budget this year.
okay. Thank you.
So he's under budget. He's under budget, correct?
Under budget for this year, yes.
Correct, and
through
all
June.
he's doing is just taking it from 18 and 19, 17 and 18 and
Estimating the
19 and 20.
same as the estimated last June, yep.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. Is
So,
there-
so I guess my question would be is if we were under budget, why wouldn't the new budget reflect what we spent this year? Why are we expecting this cushion, I guess? You know, is it just every year? I know I'm putting you on the spot, Stacy, I don't mean to at all. So every year, this legal budget is, in the legal department, we're gonna have this budget no matter what, and why wouldn't we just put next year's budget what we did this year? Why would we put that cushion? What are we expecting next year in legal bills, I guess, is what I'm saying. So we have a set number in legal bills every year, no matter what. Even if we come under, I think the next year, shouldn't we lower that line to what we did this year? Why are we allowing that line, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I love that you came under budget, so next year, why don't we just set that as the new budget?
Because that's not the, Madam Chair, if I may, that's not the way a budget is done. Possibly if you'd have got with Miss Stacy on this, that budgets, you don't go look what you've done in past experience. You've got to give a cushion of either 5 to 10, 15, 20% of what's going to happen in the new years, because you have no idea of what is going to be coming up. Also, you have no ideas what legal bills are going to be coming up. So all he's doing is just keeping it as it is, nothing
So how
more than
much
that.
was this cushion? Was it 5, 10, 15,
I have
20,
no idea. Mr. Bus-
30? Right, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we all budget higher, and we always come in lower. All of us do it the same thing, because we don't know what's in the future. So we do have, all of us build a cushion into things.
Okay, and I appreciate that. My concern is that our legal counsel has the right to give out legal bills to anybody he wants to, and, you know, I don't know, I just, why not just, whatever we spent this year, why don't we make it, that's the budget for next year?
I'd like to address the board based on this open item issue that you've talked about. I just recommend that the board look very closely and stop zeroing in on just the legal department. Remember, this certain department head is a cost in 2 departments for you. Look at the HR cost and look at the legal cost. You guys might find your numbers you're looking for.
If there are no other comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. It is now 8:26.
Oh,
And this public hearing is closed.
oh, no,
We have a resident that's coming up.
Jay Lampke again. If you had 102,000 last year and you added 25%, which is a lot to add to a budget, this brings you up to 127, quite a bit below 241. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else coming forward, I will close the public hearing once again. It is now 8:27. And this is the first of 2 public hearings. The next one will be at the next board meeting on June 26th. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next is a public hearing and resolution to establish street lighting special assessment district for Stillwater Crossing site condominiums. I will open the public hearing. It is 8:27. Mr. Van Tiffelen, all these lots are still owned by the developer, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there anyone from the public here that wishes to speak at this public hearing? No one? Then I will close the public hearing. It is 8:28. And are there any comments or motions on this item? Remember, this is a resolution.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to go ahead and establish the street lighting special assessment district for Stillwater.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski. Support. Supported by Ms. Goodhue to adopt this resolution. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Krasinski?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. This resolution is adopted. Next, we have a planning department request, and that is to approve rezoning from residential one-family suburban to residential family medium density, located on the north side of 23 Mile Road, west of Romeo Plank. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, ma'am, Chairperson, members of the board. This is actually the north end of the St. Isidore property at 23 and Romeo Plank. The developer of a piece of property to the west of there, it fronts on 23, has reached an agreement with St. Isidore to acquire the back piece of this property, as well as the property that's under item 13. And they're proposing to rezone these properties with the goal to combine them all together and create one big development that would have access out to Romeo Plank. On May 21st, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to look into the request and is recommending that the Township Board approve the rezoning as requested. However, today when I was reviewing the board packet, it came to light that the existing property that they're trying to combine the other 2 pieces with is actually zoned R2L instead of R2. So we can't combine those 2 properties, or those 3 properties together if they have different zones. So I spoke with the planner this afternoon, and he is recommending that the board go ahead and rezone the property, not follow the Planning Commission's exact recommendation, but rezone the property to R2L, which you can do because it's a lesser intense zoning than R2 is. So you have that ability to go to R2L instead of R2. So with that, I'm recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Van Tiffelen?
Mr. Van Tiffelen, this essentially is going to lead to a possible senior complex living over by St. Isidore Church, correct? This ties in with that, correct?
That is correct. There's been work on this property that's directly west of St. Isidore for quite some time. Oh, yeah. Now somebody, I think, new is involved, and they've acquired some additional, or trying to acquire some additional property to make the development the way they want it, including that access out to Romeo Plank.
Okay, thank you.
And that was R2L?
R2L is what we're recommending.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Supervisor, if there's no objections, I'd like to make the motion to rezone permanent parcel 08-17-451-026 to R2L.
Motion by Ms. Posey. Support. Supported by Ms. Nevers to approve the rezoning to R2L. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a fire department request. Oh, I'm sorry. Next, we have a request to approve ordinance amendments to M1 and M2 industrial zoning districts. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, ma'am, Chairperson, members of the board. This is the Planning Commission has been working on some amendments to the zoning ordinance for quite some time, mainly modernizing the zoning ordinance things having to do with setbacks and building heights and those types of things they've cleaned up. The major changes that have been made to the ordinance have to do with the ability for property owners to develop commercial as well as recreational within those zoning districts. Up to this point, it's been very limited. So those are the major changes that they're recommending. They have, at the last meeting, I think, recommended that the board approve it as they've submitted it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Hearing no questions, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the amended ordinances as submitted.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Ms. Smith, to approve the ordinance amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. And the next one is also a rezoning request. Residential one family suburban to residential family medium density. Mr. Van Tifflin.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. This is the other piece of property associated with the north end of the St. Isidore property. This parcel has frontage on Romeo Plank and will allow that secondary access. Again, the Planning Commission has recommended approval. This one also has the similar issue with regard to the motion by the Planning Commission. The recommendation was to go to R2, and we're recommending tonight to go to R2L so that all the parcels can be combined. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Hearing none, I'll make the motion to rezone permanent parcel 08174511014 to R2L.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Posey, seconded by Mr. Krasinski to approve this zoning request. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have another rezoning request. This is agricultural to heavy industrial, located on the south side of 23 Mile Road, a half mile east of Hayes. Mr. Van Tifflin.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. The Planning Commission has received an application to rezone this property from AG to M2. This is in keeping with the goals of the master plan. This is in our industrial area, and they are recommending approval.
Very well. That's quite a few parcels in here. Any questions for Mr. Van Tifflin?
Madam Chair, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the rezoning request from AG to heavy industrial M2. 08-19-200-005.
Second. Motion by Mr. Krasinski, seconded by Ms. Posey to rezone the parcels in question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next is a request to consider the recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding 21 Mile Road and Mustang Drive temporary access closure. Mr. Van Tifflin.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members.
What about
15?
You skipped
You
15.
missed one.
15. You missed 15. It's this one right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll back up a minute here to number 15. Request to approve rezoning for several parcels. I'm not going to read them all. Mr. Van Tifflin, will you take us through this, please?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. The Planning Commission back in April considered an application from the property owner of all these parcels to rezone the property from R1S to CF. This is in an effort to develop the property as a senior housing development. At the time, they'd also submitted a PUD plan that was considered by the Planning Commission, but that doesn't come to the board because that's not the process that the ordinance specifies for planned unit developments. I know it was referenced in some of the public comments. So, but the Planning Commission did vote to recommend that the Township Board rezone the property. They felt that it does meet the goals of the master plan for that particular area of the township, and they're recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Van Tifflin, could you please answer some of the concerns the residents had for our benefit?
With regard to the floodplain issue, we're not at that point. The developer's not required to submit that kind of detail for rezoning. There are requirements that the township, the county, the state, and the federal government have with regard to floodplain, wetlands, those types of things. Essentially, what the requirement is they can't do any harm, meaning they can't fill in the floodplain without cutting it someplace else. So whatever they're doing, if they're filling in one spot, they have to cut the area down in another spot so that there's a net zero effect to the amount of water that's being stored in the floodplain. So when you hear that somebody's filling the floodplain to develop, they're not really filling the floodplain. They may be filling in one spot, but then they have to compensate the cut someplace else. We review that, the county reviews it, the state reviews it. It even goes to the federal government as part of a letter of map revision. They are required, the county does have very stringent stormwater standards with regard to discharge into the river. That is a county drain. So they have to detain certain storm events within those detention basins on the property. And I can tell you that they're much more stringent than they used to be. So the county is getting much more sophisticated as far as those requirements go. And as a township, we essentially adopt those requirements because these parcels drain into their drains. So we're forced to do that. I know that there's been some discussion about traffic. I just want to remind everybody, the board has been working with the Macomb County Department of Roads. Once 23 Mile Road is widened all the way to Romeo Plank, they will start the widening of Romeo Plank from 21.5 all the way up to 23. The township and the county have entered into an agreement. Additionally, for the extension of Garfield between 22 and 25 Mile, which should address a lot of the traffic concerns, especially at that 22 and Romeo Plank intersection.
What about the height of the buildings? Can you address that?
Well, as of right now, all we have is a PUD concept plan. We don't have anything that really has any kind of approval. They've just given us their ideas of what they want to do. As part of the PUD process, there are several other steps that will be coming. There'll be other public hearings that will be had in front of the Planning Commission. It will come to the Township Board for you to make a decision on it. It's a PUD, the approach that they're going with is actually a negotiation between the developer and the township. So there's an agreement that goes with it. We can put all sorts of stipulations on things as part of that. And it's a wide range of things. So while we're not addressing the plan that was submitted here. We're only looking at the zoning itself.
Just the zoning,
okay. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Without the rezoning, nothing goes forward, is that correct?
I think they could submit a PUD with the current zoning for that property. But again, the township and the developer would have to come to some sort of agreement. So for this particular development, I don't know that it really matters. I think what was stated by the developer at the Planning Commission is they're trying to come through the front door and let everybody know this is what our intention is, to rezone the property, which I think under the zoning ordinance, this is the least intense use that a senior type development could go in. It could go out, the last one that we just rezoned was R2L, which could end up being a multifamily condominium if they wanted to under the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may. So it's inevitable that something will be developed in this area. It's just a matter of what. So if it's the lesser of two, would it be the lesser of two evils in that area? Otherwise, it would be a development of single-family homes, if I'm not mistaken.
The master plan map indicates this area would be an R1 type of use. So a single-family subdivision type of use, like condominium, that kind of thing. The master plan doesn't actually indicate where community facility zoning is supposed to go in the township, but it does give criterion as to how these things are supposed to be placed throughout, and it does say that it should be in the township. So a developer bought these parcels of land with the intention of developing them. So yeah, I believe their intent is to develop the property. However, that ends up being, is going to be, whether it's part of the PUD or something else, I think that's their intention.
So even if we were, say we didn't approve the CF rezoning, the developer still can utilize the property to develop into what the master plan has suggested, which is residential.
Yes.
Now, if a residential development was to go in that area, there seems to be concern if anything's built in that area, it's gonna force flooding back into that residential area. Is it the same for if a development of residential homes go in there? I mean,
Yes.
what would be the difference between the two?
The same criterion apply to both types of developments, whether it's a denser type of multifamily development
Okay.
or it's a single-family development. It has to do with how much water is running off of that site. And the floodplain requirements don't change. It's whatever you're filling, you have to cut someplace else. So the net effect, it's like your backyard pool. If you put something in there, the water level goes up slightly. What the state and the county say is you have to find a place for that water to go. You can't just let the water rise up.
Someone mentioned also the concerns with the property behind Waldenberg Park, and that area floods to a big, it's extreme when it does flood. So I know that when I talked it over with the Planning Commission with regards to that property, they had indicated that the developer would be forced to raise the elevation in a sense to accommodate for the flooding that's back there. Is that similar to this situation or no?
Exact same thing. They have detention basins, or one big detention basin that's associated with that development that's closest to the river. All of whatever they're filling on what I'll call the upland side of the property will be cut on the bottom side of the property where that detention pond is. So the net effect to the floodplain is zero. It doesn't move that water someplace else. The state wouldn't allow that. Same thing, with wetlands. The state regulates wetlands. Macomb Township doesn't regulate wetlands, but they have to follow all the state's requirements. And if they disturb a wetland someplace on that property, then they have to mitigate that someplace else. And usually it's a factor. You disturb an acre here, you got to mitigate 4 acres someplace else. So, but all that stuff is permitted, through the state.
Okay. I personally, in that area, there seems to be enough commercial-like buildings in that area, and I personally choose to follow the master plan and leave it as residential in an effort to keep the beautification of that area. I would hate to see it become more commercial or all commercial and become sort of like an industrial drive. That's just my opinion. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
At this point, we're just talking about the zoning.
Correct.
No. Oh, we're just talking about it, unless you want to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion. What are you going to do?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I go ahead and make the recommendation for these properties from R1S to the CF Community Facilities for the listed numbers as presented.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Ms. Goodhue. To
Madam
approve-
Chair, can we get a roll call vote on this?
Yes.
To approve the rezoning request. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Krasinski?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
No.
Trustee Nevers?
No.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Clerk Posey, no. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. That motion failed.
Now we will move on to consider the recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding 22 Mile Road and Mustang Drive temporary access closure. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. The township has received a number of complaints from residents that live in Legacy Farms subdivision. The subdivision fronts on Fairchild and future 22 Mile Road. When the sub was developed many years ago, because 22 Mile Road does not go through, They provided a temporary connection between the east end of 22 Mile, east of North, about a half mile east of North Avenue, and the subdivision for emergency access. The township required that. The township has since petitioned Macomb County Department of Roads to extend 22 to Fairchild. It was on several lists that we've given the county that included Garfield and Broughton and Heidenreich and those projects. The indication that we've gotten from the Macomb County Department of Roads is at this point they are not interested in doing this project. Much of it has to do with the fact that there's a house that's in the way of the road that they would essentially have to buy, and they're not interested in doing that at this point. So when that decision came down, the residents in the subdivision asked if there's anything else that could be done. We had indicated that we can certainly look at closing that temporary access road because we do have other subdivisions that are coming in that would allow additional access points from Fairchild and eventually up to 23 Mile. So on, I think it was the 16th of April, the Planning Commission held a hearing and heard all sorts of different comments from residents in the area, both in the subdivision and adjacent subdivisions. There were a number of suggestions that were made. The Planning Commission, I think Pat's, our planner, summarized those recommendations in the cover letter. Also, that's in your board packet. Also, the meeting minutes that were created as part of that meeting with all of the comments. Essentially, what they're asking is for the Township Board to send correspondence to the Department of Roads to look into these things that they've outlined in that big long motion that the Planning Commission made. So, and I would assume that that would be in the form of a letter from the supervisor with all this information that was in the board packet attached to it. That's what they've requested. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Supervisor, if I may, I just would like to indicate that I personally received several complaints from a few of the residents in this subdivision, and their concerns were legitimate. And I appreciate the entities that came together, our Sheriff's Department, our Fire Department, Macomb County Department of Roads, our representatives from the township, went out of their way to investigate, to get detailed information with regards to the concerns that we received from these residents. So I appreciate everybody coming together to try and address this issue. Unfortunately, a lot of it is out of our hands. Some of it we can't even personally address ourselves. So we as a township did pull together with the entities to try and rectify the situation, and at this point we're left with what we are offered to propose this evening. So thank you to everybody that tried to help rectify it.
Anyone else?
Are you putting that in the form of a motion, Ms. Posey?
No, you're more than welcome to.
No, I'm waiting on you.
I was making a statement. But I can, but it's very lengthy. I'll make a motion for the Planning Commission recommends that the Township Board recommend to the Department of Roads the following: that the roads remain open until further access is available either from 22 Mile Road or a combination of other roads out to 23 Mile Road and Fairchild Road through the adjoining subdivision, that we recommend stop signs, curb speed limit signs, road ending warning signs, signs warning of disabilities, and signs warning against through traffic be studied, and such signs be put up if feasible, since we think it is highly valuable. Second to that, the Road Commission strongly consider restricting the access to 22 emergency access, to install speed bumps as necessary to slow traffic down, and to consider accelerating the expansion of 22 Mile Road by limiting the road right-of-way for the section in question to allow it within the existing right-of-way. And further, that all public comments at this meeting be included in such request with our concern that this is urgent and that there are a lot of residents affected by this access concern.
I'll second that.
That may be the longest motion I've ever had to vote on since I've been up here.
I will agree with that. Motion by Ms. Posey, seconded by Mr. Krasinski, to follow the direction of the Planning Commission. All in favor?
You don't want to repeat it?
No, I'm not going to repeat it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you for the lengthy explanation here. Next is the Finance Department request to adopt the budget amendment resolution for municipal roadway fund. Ms. Smith.
Yep, good evening. Tonight is a request for a budget amendment for the municipal roadway fund for the current fiscal year, the 2018-19 budget. Last year, the Township Board had approved a total of $4,700,100, and I am requesting to increase that to $5,269,000. The primary reason for that is the roundabout at 25 Mile Road in Romeo Plank that's going to be put in, and then the widening of 23 Mile Road from Fairchild to Romeo Plank.
Thank you.
And that should be done by board resolution, which I have attached in the packet.
Yes, thank you. Anyone have any questions on this?
Madam Chair, because it's so short, I'll read this one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to amend the 2018-19 budget in the following fund: municipal roadway fund expenditures from $4.7 million to $5.269 million.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
seconded by Mr. Buzzano to adopt the budget amendments resolution. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Krasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes, this resolution is adopted. Next, we have another Finance Department request, and that's to approve the 2018-19 General Fund Budget Reallocations. Ms. Smith again.
Yep. Tonight is a request for a budget reallocation of the general fund. The reallocation does not change the bottom line budgeted expenses out of the general fund that the Township Board approved last June. It is solely to request to move $90,165 of budgeted funds from contingency, or from the contingency line item. Of that amount, $23,030 would be allocated to the IT department, $5,715 to the public safety crossing guard section, $6,045 to the engineering department, and $55,375 to the operating transfer out section of the general fund. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to relocate the budget in the general fund in the following manner: increase IT department by $23,030, reallocate line items as presented for assessing department, increase public safety crossing guards by $5,715, increase engineering department by $6,045, and increase operating transfer out by $55,375, and decrease contingencies by $90,165.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski. Support. Seconded by Ms. Nevers to approve the general fund budget reallocations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Treasurer's Office has a request to approve the additional 2 years of the contract with LaserCom for tax bill printing. Ms. Goodhue.
At the time of going out to bid for tax bill printing, we had done it for 1 year with the option of renewing for 2 years. And at this time, I would like to increase those 2 years because the cost is very minimal that we are getting from this company to print the bills. And time goes by real fast, and I don't want to miss. So this will go out to bid again for winter 2020 bills, and at that time I probably will do the 3 years at one time because it's too time consuming to continually renew it. So at this time I'm requesting that you approve the 2 additional years of the contract with LaserCom for tax bill printing.
That was your motion?
Yes.
I'll support that.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue, seconded by Mr. Krasinski to approve the contract additional 2 years for tax bill printing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. And 19A is a report on the ethics ordinance. Ms. Goodhue, you're going to address this?
Yes. Ms. Nevers and myself and Mr. S.A.D were, actually, Mr. S.A.D was asked at the last meeting to provide some documentation for the ethics board, or the ethics ordinance, the advisory rules, and the hearing options and things like that. So we sat down and went over everything. I did give a copy of the drafts to the chair of the ethics committee. The civil infractions, this is for information only, so that we can make a decision at the next meeting. For civil infractions, after much review of the information provided relative to civil infractions, Mr. S.A.D is recommending that if the ethics ordinance includes a penalty of a civil infraction, the township expand its current ordinances relative to commencement and having procedures already adopted. The current ordinance mirrors the state statute. Creating a procedure substantially different from that would not be advisable. Well, the advisory opinions. We also have some advisory opinions provided to us that all the board members had in their packet, or was emailed to us actually. And then there is a procedure for hearings as well. So this is all information for, to be able to make a decision at the next meeting. I will say that I've done a lot of research on this, and I am going to be proposing an option 2 at that time. It is MTA, Michigan Township Association Code of Ethical Conduct. So it provides even more overseeing than the ordinance does. So the board members will have 2 options next board meeting to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move now.
Madam Chair, if I just have a question. So the original ordinance that we have had some things that had to be amended, changed, corrected typographical errors. Do we know who's making that before it's actually put in front of us to vote on that? Is it, I don't know if it's the chair from the ethics. I'm just concerned, I just want to make sure we get a finalized document before we vote on it. I don't know whose responsibility that was to make those corrections, if anybody can answer that question. Anybody?
I believe it was the committee. It was to make the changes.
Because what we have right now is a pretty rough draft, I would have to say.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So I don't want to get back here next, at the next meeting and vote on a rough draft. Do we have any idea who's going to provide a finalized draft or finalized copy for us to be able to vote on?
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, Karen and I, and of course Mr. S.A.D, have spent countless hours looking at the original document presented, and we couldn't exactly tweak a few things. We did a deeper dive and put together ideas that I feel are ready to be considered and to vote upon. Hence, Ms. Goodhue sending it out to the committee chair, and they'll consent on it, and we'll be able to vote next meeting.
Okay, so the committee chair has the option to.
That is correct.
Okay. If it's going to be rough, I just would rather it be perfected.
We feel it was rough getting to this point.
Yeah,
but
so
what we've come up with, we don't feel is rough.
Okay. I just want to make
Madam
sure
Chair, the only response I would have to that is the committee, I don't know how you could have a deeper dive than what they did. I mean, they took a model, a legal document that's worked, that has, in our county, they met many months, they spent much time. Each and every one of us put somebody in that committee. I don't know how, no offense, I don't know how you took a deeper dive than what that committee took. And what I'm concerned about is I really thought the vote next meeting was going to be about what the committee did. Now I hear there's a version 2 that we may put out because a couple people on this board took a deeper dive outside of the committee that we trusted to meet month after month after month. And to be honest, I think, my opinion, I think it's insulting to say we took a deeper dive.
If I may, perhaps that was a poor choice of words, but we just felt that what was, I don't mean to say cobbled together, but what was put together from different townships didn't quite work for our township, in our humble opinion. Okay, hence, we presented what we feel works for this township. We're giving the committee 2 weeks to look it over. I'm sure you haven't had a chance to do that yet. You may.
I have not seen it, no,
Okay, well,
thank you.
Okay, it will be sent out, and I assumed it was sent today. I may stand corrected on that, but at any rate, we feel this document works more for this particular township. And again, I can appreciate, with all of the meetings and hours spent, how difficult it was to come up with the document that the committee came up with. It just didn't seem, in our humble opinion, to work for this specific township. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And I don't mean to be disrespectful.
And I don't mean to be either, but all of a sudden it sounds like you and our treasurer and whoever else met to do a side document. We definitely, in our township, need a unique document to make sure that we don't have any federal noses in our township ever again. I'm kind of surprised on what's going on right here. I really, really am. I didn't know that there was a side committee appointed with our treasurer and you and whoever else that met to take a deeper dive. I hope, next meeting that we pass something, and I do agree that our township needs something very unique to address the unique indictments that's been brought about former trustees of this township.
As do we. But Karen and I, and anybody else who wanted to get involved in the ethics deal could have joined us. I understand that, I'm freer during the day because I'm retired. Karen's full-time. Anybody who wanted to could do this. We have 3 full-time members that have a lot, and a lot was going on, and ever since this issue has come up. But we felt that we should give it our, as they say, due diligence.
Well, I'm just confused because every member except Kathy, you weren't on the board yet, it voted to put somebody in a committee to draft this document, and all of a sudden, to be honest, I had a couple community meetings about this, and I know some members on this board didn't feel quite comfortable that Mr. Busno was leading us up and addressing this. To say that anybody that wanted to be involved with ethics could come forward, I thought we put it in the hands of a committee. That's what not only do I think that, we voted on that. And we put it in the hands of a committee. I'm kind of taken aback that said anybody on this board that want to get involved with ethics. If I knew there was a side committee, and I think in our township we had too many side committees going on for many, many years. I didn't know that there was a side committee that I could have been involved with, because I would have been the first one. I would have took personal days. I would have took the time off, because I don't know. I'm really, really shocked at the discussion up here right now.
Karen, sounds like you'd like to add something.
The committee that was formed was an advisory committee. It was stated in their description. They were to develop and research an ethics ordinance and bring it
100%.
back to the board for their decision, okay? We have to look at that as well. We could probably have a meeting yet before the next one if you wanted to join us. But
If I get invited, I'd do it, Karen. Invite me. Tell me what day today was my last day of school. I got all the time in the world. Invite me to this side committee that I didn't know what was going on.
Okay. You talked about stopping corruption with this ordinance. There are laws for that. This ordinance is not going to stop what happened.
There was a culture down here. There were laws that were broken. People turned their back to laws, and we know that, okay? And that is still developing on who turned their back to those laws, right? Okay? So all of a sudden we have a side pseudo committee that I don't think anybody but you and Nancy know about that met. Miss Posey's shaking her head. Don't mean to call you out right now. So all of a sudden you guys, this was an advisory committee, right? And it should have been talked about. And you have Plan 2, and now she said, and we've met and talked about it. This is shocking to me. It's really surprising.
If I may, I have been in communication with Mr. Dilios, letting him know that both Karen and I are working on this. He didn't seem to have an objection. What we want is an ordinance that is right for this township. And he and the committee are going to be looking over our work product and see if it's acceptable to that committee. We want to move forward. It's an issue whose time has come. But I doubt that anything would stop a corruption if somebody wants to be that scurrilous and embezzle money and whatever. It's always after the fact that we find this out. I mean, I would love to come up with some magic law or rule or ordinance that would stop that before it happened. I don't think that's possible. But again, I may be naive.
I get all this, but we voted to form a committee, and all of a sudden, you and Karen now are meeting. I'd love to talk to Jim too. I could talk to him all day long about ethics, and I think he would love to talk to me too.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
So I don't understand. I'm just really taken aback that this has taken this kind of turn. I really thought when we voted as a board, you know, when I say yes or no into the microphone, I take it very seriously. And we appointed people to that commission. I had no idea that you two were working on something separate with Jim. You know, I love that you're talking to Jim. I love that you're communicating with him. Jim's a great guy. You're a great person. But this board was not made aware that you and Karen were now talking to the committee.
Well, if I may explain, both Karen and I felt this was serious, and that we wanted to invest all of these hours to make this perfect as we could for our township. Now, the actual work product will be given to the committee. If they have issues on that, or if they think we didn't go far enough, or we thought we went too far, it couldn't be done, boom, you know, okay, we're gonna talk about it today, and then next week we're gonna vote on it. They may think this went too far. They may think it didn't go far enough. But to get it done quickly, and I know this has taken a long time, so it's not, you know, quickly, but what I'm saying is we want to vote, and we want to have something that's as perfect as we can have it for our township, and that a consensus vote would agree upon it.
I
And
get
that's
all
my
that,
purpose.
but why not an email to the board that me and Karen now are working with the ethics committee?
Well, you know what?
I'm finding out about that
hindsight-
right now.
in
Right now, I'm
hindsight-
finding out about. Don't forget that I hold the first 2 community meetings, and Miss Posey was there, right? And employees were there, and many of the people in this crowd were there. I don't know. I mean, I'm very excited to see Plan 2.
Okay, and you will, and you may love
When?
it.
When?
You may love it once you see it. So perhaps you'd like to, hold your thoughts until you read it and see what's going on.
But who gave you and Karen the
Madam
authority
Chair.
to meet? Who gave you two the authority to take this over?
Mr. Bozzano, if you're gonna ask a question, please be respectful of the person who's asking.
Madam Chair, okay.
Mr.
Madam Chair, when did you know that these two were meeting about the ethics ordinance? When did you know? As our supervisor, as the elected leader in this township, when did you know?
I can't give you a date,
Madam Chair.
maybe a couple weeks. Go ahead, Karen.
As Ms. Posey has stated before, any board member can go to a department head and find out information and bring anything to this board that they want to. I was their liaison for a while. This is very important to me. I've done a lot of research on it, like I said, because I was here. So I did the same thing.
Yeah, you've been
Any
here.
board member, I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
Madam
said
Chair,
yes,
if I
I
may,
agree, you've been
Madam Chair, point of order, please. If I may, Mr. Busno, would you please wait until somebody's done before you make some type of a statement, please? It's
Yes,
only courteous. Thank you.
And I
Thank you,
expect
Madam
the
Chair.
same courtesy back from you, Mr. Krasinski.
I
'cause you've
always
been
go through the chair.
For
Oh,
3
my
years.
Wow.
Wow. Yes, I can say the same thing. Wow.
I think it's time to move on.
Yes.
We have a facilities and grounds request for authorization to proceed with design work and obtain bids for the 2019 and 2020 CDBG Sidewalk Ramp Program. Mr. Gelli.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, and good evening, board members. I am here tonight to ask for authorization to proceed with the design work and bid for the and obtain bids for the 2019 and 2020 CDBG Sidewalk Ramp Program within subdivision sections 30 and 36. The total estimate for the 2019 and 20 projects is $333,258, which will cover approximately 25 intersections throughout sections 30 and 36. Under the CDBG program, the county will cover $206,855, leaving the township to be responsible for the remaining $126,403 based on the attached preliminary estimate sheet. The purpose of this project is to bring the sidewalk ramps throughout the township subdivisions up to ADA compliance by reworking the intersections, allowing residents a safer option when crossing the street. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kelly?
Madam Chair, if there's no questions, I make a motion to authorize to proceed with design work and obtain bids for the 2019 and 2020 CDBG Sidewalk Ramp Program.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Posey to authorize the design work and the bids for the sidewalk ramp program. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering Department has a request to award the contract for the 23 Mile Road water main replacement. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. On May 28th, the township opened bids for the 23 Mile Road water main replacement. This is the first phase of a larger project to replace the water main, relocate the water main essentially, along 23 Mile Road in the area where the road is being widened. This particular project is basically east and west of the intersection at Card Road. We need to get that done and out of the way so the Department of Roads can work on that hopefully next year. So the township received 4 bids. LD Augustini and Sons was the low bidder at $598,350.00. We have reviewed the bid. We have met with the contractor to make sure that they are capable of completing the work in accordance with the plans and specifications, and we are satisfied, and we're recommending that the project be awarded to LD Augustini and Sons in the amount of $598,350.00. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this project?
Madam Chair, hearing none, I'll make a motion to go ahead and award the contract to LD Augustini and Sons.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Posey to award the contract to DeAugustini and Sons. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next is a request to approve construction materials testing, observation, and engineering services for the 2019 Pathway Gap Closure Program. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, Madam Chairperson and members of the board. The 2019 Pathway Gap Closure Program was awarded by the Township Board to a contractor earlier in the year. That contractor is scheduled to start probably within the next 2 weeks. So we need to have a material testing company available to make sure that the materials that are being placed on for the project meet our requirements. We've obtained a proposal from Professional Services Industries, PSI, and we're recommending approval. That's basically an as-needed work. So the prices that are in here are when we need them, we call them, they do these things. They've estimated the total at, I think it's $25,340, but that's merely an estimate. It will depend on the contractor's work schedule and so on. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Van Tiffelen on this?
Madam Chair, on a recommendation of engineering, I'll go ahead and request to approve construction materials testing, observation, and engineering services for the 2019 pathway gap closure program.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
seconded by Ms. Goodhue to approve this request as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next is a pathway abeyance request for 45800 Card Road. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, ma'am, Chairperson, members of the board. This particular piece of property is adjacent to a couple of lots in Tesner Park subdivision on Card Road between Hall and 21 Mile. The property owners within the subdivision want to acquire this piece, split and combine the property so that it extends their backyard out beyond the edge of the plat. There currently is no pathway in front of this parcel. As part of that split and combination, we would normally require that the pathway go in. The property owner is requesting that the pathway be placed in abeyance temporarily until they get all their plans approved by the building department to install the patio and the other amenities in their backyard, and then they can have one contractor come out and pour the concrete for everything. We've reviewed the request and are okay with recommending approval. I should note that this is part of our 2027 gap closure program right now. So the latest that this would go in would be 2027. If we got there and this pathway wasn't there, we'd call the abeyance and they would have to put it in, or we'd put it in and charge them. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Hearing none, I'll make the motion to approve the pathway abeyance for 45800 Card Road, parcel number 0835300-023.
Motion by Ms. Posey,
Support.
supported by Ms. Smith to approve the pathway abeyance as requested. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries.
Seriously.
Next, we have a release of easement for storm sewer for Glen Oaks condominiums. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, ma'am, Chairperson, members of the board. This is a request to vacate essentially an easement that was mistakenly recorded by the developer as part of the engineering plan review process. This development is scheduled to start construction here very shortly, but we want to clean up the site and make sure that nobody's under the impression that this is a township storm sewer on this property. So we are recommending that the release be approved.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions on this project?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve release of easement of storm sewer for Glen Oaks condominiums.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski.
Support.
Seconded by Mr. Bosno to approve the release of the easement for the storm sewer for Glen Oaks condominiums. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next, we have a request to approve geotechnical investigation for the pedestrian bridge over the Glody Drain. Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, ma'am, Chairperson, members of the board. The Township Board had previously authorized us to begin the design work for the 2020 Pathway Gap Closure Program. One of the facilities that we need to install is a bridge over the Glody Drain, which is in the area 21 in Garfield. We've gotten far enough along with the design that it's now time for us to get some soil boring so that we can finish up the design of the foundation for the bridge. We've obtained a proposal from G2 Consulting and are recommending that this work be awarded to G2 in the amount of $55,600. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Hearing none, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and approve the investigation of, no, which one? Sorry.
Motion.
25, I'm sorry.
Motion
The
by-
geotechnical investigating pedestrian bridge over Lodi Drain.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
seconded by Ms. Goodhue, to approve the geotechnical investigation as requested. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. Motion carries. And the next one, I believe, is practically the same thing, only this is for Waldenburg Park boardwalk replacement. Mr. Van Tiffel.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board, this is the exact same thing as the previous item, same company. This is for the boardwalk that we are now going to, that the board's authorized us to replace at the front of Waldenburg Park. We need to get this done in order to design the foundation properly for the new boardwalk. The amount of the proposal is $5,150. Recommending approval.
Thank you. Any motions on this one?
Madam Chair.
Make the motion to approve the
support.
geotechnical investigation for the Waldenburg Boardwalk replacement.
Motion by Ms. Posey,
Support.
supported by Ms. Goodhue, to approve the geotechnical investigation for the Waldenburg Park boardwalk replacement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries, and we have another geotechnical investigation for Country Club Drive parallel sanitary sewer and lead reconnection. Mr. Van Tiffel.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board, this is a similar item, except for this is for a sewer project that the Township Board had previously authorized. We've gotten to a point with the design that we need to get the soil borings so that we can finish up the design of the sewer and get the bidding documents prepared. We obtained a proposal from McDowell and Associates. They are proposing to complete the work for $6,060.00. Be happy to answer any questions.
Very well. Any questions for Mr. Van Tifflin?
Hearing none, I'll make the motion to approve the geotechnical investigation for Country Club Drive parallel sanitary sewer and lead reconnection.
Motion by Ms. Posey,
Support.
seconded by Ms. Goodhue, to approve the geotechnical investigation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next is a request to authorize Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick to provide hydrology, floodplain, and surveying services for Stillwater Crossing as requested by the developer. Mr. Van Tifflin.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. The developer of Stillwater Crossings site condominiums has approached the township for permission to use Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick to perform these services. Early on in the development of this subdivision, before they were a consultant to the township, they had done some of the preliminary work for the previous developer. New developer has the project. The engineer who's been working on that project is not capable at this point of performing this work, since AEW has previous experience with it, and instead of having to start over with somebody else, they're asking for our permission to use AEW to essentially complete the work that they had started years ago. We've reviewed the request. We would typically have Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber review these types of things anyway, so there is no potential for a conflict of interest here, so we're recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize AEW to go ahead and provide hydrology, floodplain surveying services for Stillwater Crossing site condominium.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Posey, to approve this request as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we have a fire department request, and that is to approve a 3-year contract with the Macomb County Sheriff Department for fire dispatching services. Chief Phillips.
Madam Supervisor and members of the board, at the December 6th, 2017 board meeting, you authorized the county to perform a department-wide IT survey in order to determine the needs of the fire department along with the needs of the new public safety building. As a result of that survey, last July a proposal was made by the Sheriff's Office to provide dispatching services for the township. At that time, there was no action taken on the proposal due to the recent addition of the full-time staff and the uncertainty as to the impact on the budget. As you're aware, the township contracts with the Macomb County Sheriff Department for law enforcement services. Thus, Macomb County Sheriff through Comtech serves as a 911 public safety answering point for the township. When 911 is dialed within the township, the call is answered at Comtech, and one of the dispatchers there takes the information and then determines which emergency service or emergency services is needed, and if fire is required, they handle the original tone out for the fire station or stations. After the original tone out is complete, one of our on-duty part-time dispatchers takes over the handling of the call. Our part-time dispatchers do not receive, nor do they ever have any involvement in the original 911 call. During the preparation of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, I spoke to Supervisor Dunn and requested her approval to contact the Sheriff Department and request they review their proposal to provide dispatching services for the fire department. Based on the financial numbers, Supervisor Dunn agreed, and I contacted Sheriff Wickersham, and several meetings were held with his personnel and him. On May 24th, 2019, I received the proposal that was attached and provided in your packet. The proposal is to provide full fire dispatch services for the fire department. This means the emergency call will be handled from start to finish at Comtech. The proposal is inclusive of the services, technology, enhancements, and personnel that are required for Comtech to provide a complete end-to-end dispatch system. Currently, the Sheriff Department provides full service dispatching for Sterling Heights Fire, Clinton Township Fire, City of Mount Clemens Fire, Harrison Township Fire, and the Washington Township Fire Department. All have indicated that they are pleased with the service that they receive. If approved, this contract will provide us with the latest technology available, not only within the fire stations, but also within the fire apparatus. Each fire apparatus will be outfitted with a mobile data terminal that is connected 24/7 to Comtech. In addition, each station will be outfitted with station alerting software and hardware that will improve and allow the crews to respond in a safer and more efficient manner. The one negative aspect associated with this request is that it would result in the layoff of our current part-time dispatchers. Comtech has indicated that all of our current dispatchers could apply for a dispatch position with Comtech, and that has been assured by Sheriff Wickersham also. The current collective bargaining agreement between the Michigan Association of Firefighters and Macomb Township does allow for the contracting of services, and the language regarding the layoffs within the collective bargaining agreement would be followed. It is anticipated that Comtech would be capable of starting to provide the services later on this fall. The financial numbers contained within the proposal have been reviewed with the finance director. Ms. Smith has stated that the budget for both fiscal years will still be under budget even with the additional expense. The first year cost of $752,420.09 will be split between the current fiscal year 2018-2019 budget and the upcoming fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. The fiscal year 2018-2019 budget would be charged $376,210.05, and the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget would be charged $376,210.04. It has been determined that we are not in need of the data conversion that is listed in the proposal, thus reducing the total cost by $34,150. If approved, this evening, Sheriff Wickersham will present the proposal to the County Board of Commissioners for their approval, and then the contract will be drafted for the supervisor and sheriff to sign and enter into. At this time, I'm requesting your approval to enter into the 3-year contract with the Macomb County Sheriff for fire dispatching services. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I don't know if it's a question or comments. I talked to you, Chief, last couple days. This is probably the toughest vote that I've taken since I've been up here. I'm torn on this because I know that if I vote yes, from people I really trust, told me that our residents are going to be better served, our firefighters are going to be able to respond quicker and be more organized. At the same time, you also mentioned something in the same vote. We're going to lay some people off, and I don't take that easy. And and again, it's been pretty easy for me to do what I've had to do up here. This is a really, really tough vote. So I just want to go back to, I know the sheriff department talked about, welcoming our dispatchers with open arms. And I know there's some other communities, St. Clair Shores, for example, said, get your dispatchers over here tomorrow, and we will talk to them. What steps are we going to take to make sure that our part-time dispatchers, are, have you thought about that? It's nice on paper to say, yeah, we're going to try to help them out, but are we really, is this a big part of the agreement with you and the sheriff that we're going to try to get these dispatchers that, you can never promise a job, I know that, I'm realistic, but are we really going to, give them references, recommend them, this is a tough vote, because I know if I vote yes, again, and all of us, it's gonna help our residents completely, and it's gonna help our firefighters. But we're laying people off in the same vote. So anyway, are we really gonna take those steps to try to get those dispatchers at least an interview? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, to answer your question, yes. And first of all, I don't take the recommendation lightly, knowing that 10 families will be impacted, as we've talked about. But my job is to do and recommend what's going to provide the best level of service to the residents, which I believe this will ultimately do. And as Sheriff Wickersham, Captain Kennedy, who runs the operations side for the dispatching, have both assured me that the current 10 dispatchers are more than welcome to apply. We will provide them with the applications. I spoke to Captain Kennedy this morning, who wasn't able to make it this evening. He indicated that all they have to do is put on the application that they were one of our dispatchers, and they will do everything possible to help them get through the process and to land one of the positions that are currently available at Comtech. And then, as you indicated, Sarisa, which is combined dispatching for St. Clair Shores, East Point, and Roseville, have indicated that they also have openings, and we will again provide them with the information for both of those locations. And as long as Human Resources has no issues, I'll be more than happy to provide a letter of recommendation.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, if I may, you mentioned that several other communities have gone this path. How is the expense figured out for our township? Is it based on population, or is it the same for all communities?
It's based on population and based on call service. So Sterling Heights certainly has a higher population. They have a higher call volume, so their contract is additional compared to ours, where Harrison Township, Mount Clemens, Washington Township would be less than what we're paying. It's a formula that they use.
So currently, as you described, the phone call comes in and there's an extra step that can be avoided by going this path.
Correct. It will eliminate the initial tone out taking place, and then either one of our dispatchers, or if we don't have a dispatcher that's working, one of our either full-time or paid-on-call firefighters having to take over. This will be handled strictly start to finish inside the confines of Comtech or their backup center, wherever they may be operating.
Well, on my behalf, I've had to use 911 with one of my children at one time, and time is of essence in those situations. And if you ever have a loved one in that situation, you would want all steps to be expedited, and so I'm in full agreement of this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are there any motions?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and go into a 3-year contract with the Macomb County Sheriff Department for fire dispatching services.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Ms. Nevers, to approve the request for Sheriff Department fire dispatching. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a Water and Sewer Department request for a pay construction estimate number 1 for sanitary sewer cleaning, CCTV investigation, AEW project number 0249-0162. Mr. Wangler.
Thank you, Supervisor Dunn and board members. Water and Sewer is in front of you tonight requesting permission to to pay estimate number 1 to Pipe Tech Infrastructure Services in the amount of $67,784. Water and Sewer has reviewed this as well as engineering, and we are recommending approval of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make I'll make a motion to, upon the recommendation of the elite Water and Sewer Department person of $67,784.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski.
Support.
Seconded by Ms. Goodhue to approve the construction pay estimate as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
General Counsel has a request to authorize the supervisor to execute the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension on behalf of the township. Mr. Assorti.
Madam Chair and members of the board, back in 2005, this township signed the first permit attached that's been attached with your package for the Metropolitan Extension Telecommunications Right-of-Way Oversight Act. So what we all commonly know as the Metro Act, and if you're not familiar with it, it's basically an act that the state put in place back in 2002 to make sure that the public right-of-way was available to install and maintain telecommunications facilities. What it did is basically took some of the power away from the local municipalities and had it with the state. So with that, now AT&T has requested an extension of time that is approved by the by the MPSC. It's available on their site. What's been presented to us for an extension of time is the same form and agreement that's put in place with everywhere in the state of Michigan where AT&T is taking advantage of the Metro Act. So with that, I'm asking for a motion to authorize the supervisor to execute the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension on behalf of the township.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to execute the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension on behalf of the township.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue.
Support. Oh, go ahead.
Supported by Ms. Smith to authorize the supervisor to sign the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next is a request to approve the Michigan Paid Medical Leave Act policy. Mr. Assorti.
Madam Chair and members of the board, very late last year, the state of Michigan passed an act relative to paid medical leave for employees, even that were working less than a full 40 hours per week. With that, it was kind of surprising to most communities, and quite a bit of work was put into it. So with that, I want to thank Ms. Smith and the finance department. They did an extensive amount of work and review. We looked at basically every avenue of the possibilities that were out there for the policy and what impact that would have on the township. Some of our initial thought was that it could substantially financially impact that. So after going through those numbers and discussing the matter with Ms. Smith about the financial impact, we did, I am proposing this policy as presented. What it does is it takes advantage of the act. It front loads for those employees that will be eligible for the paid medical leave. It front loads their benefits back to the effective date of the act, and assures that the township has every right to take control of those, and they're used within the time constraints of applied by the individual department heads, as well as the opportunity it gives us, as Ms. Smith and I met earlier this week, gives us the opportunity to come back at the end of the year, and if it does have an impact, financial impact on the township different than what we anticipated, it would give us the opportunity to come back in front of you and amend the policy. I will point out that we did find a typo on the very last page. The first line, the word "on" should say "for personal medical reasons." So with that, I ask for approval of the Paid Medical Leave Act policy as presented with that correction.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. S.A.D on this?
Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the Michigan Paid Medical Leave Act policy as presented with the correction.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Support.
supported by Ms. Nevers, to approve the policy as submitted with the correction. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Next, we have a resolution regarding the purchase of property. Mr. S.A.D.
Madam Chair and members of the board, this board met in closed session a short while ago to discuss the purchase of certain parcel of property. With that, there was a review by myself and several department heads relative to the particular parcel that has a significant logistical and historical importance to the township. And after that discussion, there was a purchase agreement that was signed on the matter. It did give the township an extensive due diligence period to review the purchase. We are now prepared to close, and so with that, I need the township to close would need a resolution authorizing the supervisor for the purchase of 51540 and 51660 Romeo Plank.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and do the purchase of those two properties as stated by legal.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Mr. Busno, to adopt the resolution as provided. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Krasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. This resolution is adopted. Under the Human Resources Department, we have a request to approve the hiring of Carole Nicholson as the Deputy Assessor pursuant to the applicable collective bargaining agreement. Mr. S.A.D.
Madam Chair and members of the board, early last month, the Human Resources Department was authorized to begin the recruitment process for Deputy Assessor. As everyone is well aware, we have two separate bargaining agreements and bargaining units within the township for staff. When we put this out, we received one internal application for the position. We took in that application, met with Mr. Hickey. The committee consisting of Supervisor Dunn, Clerk Posey, and Mr. Hickey met with the applicant, went over the provisions of what would be required. We're satisfied with what was presented, and with that, are recommending the hiring of Carole Nicholson for the position of Deputy Assessor. So with that, I'd ask for somebody to make a motion to approve the hiring of Carole Nicholson as Deputy Assessor pursuant to both, her transition from one to the other would be in compliance with both collective bargaining agreements.
Thank you. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make that motion of hiring Carole Nicholson as Deputy Assessor.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski, seconded by Ms. Goodhue, to approve the request as submitted and hire Ms. Nicholson as the Deputy Assessor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. The next one is the add-on, and that's the authorization to extend an offer of employment to the part-time mechanical inspector. Mr. S.A.D.
Madam Chair and members of the board, in an effort to help Mr. Maples with his department and the growing need for inspectors, on April 10th of this year, the Human Resources Department was authorized to begin the recruitment process for a part-time plumbing and mechanical inspector. We received one application for the position. This individual has the qualifications for a mechanical inspector. With that, I met with Mr. Maples. We went over his qualifications, that information, and then with that, we met with Supervisor Dunn, the building official, Mr. Maples, who met as a selection committee and are recommending the hiring of Kenneth Christodoula for a position of part-time mechanical inspector. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to approve Kenneth Christodoula for hire as a part-time mechanical inspector contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-hire examinations.
Thank you. Any questions on this?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to hire Mr. Kenneth Christodoula.
Motion by Mr. Kuzminski.
Support.
Seconded by Ms. Smith to extend the offer of employment for the part-time mechanical inspector. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Number 34.
35.
35, I'm sorry, is a request to review, discuss, and update anti-discrimination policy dated March 1st, 2004. Ms. Smith.
Madam Chair, I put this on the agenda for this evening because of the date of it. It's 2004. I do think it's very important to me as a union employee, used to be a union employee, that this isn't up to date. I talked to Mr. S.A.D briefly today about it. My understanding is they were working on something previously before I came. I feel very strongly for employees. Without getting too wordy, I'd like to sit down and talk to Mr. S.A.D, see what he has. I didn't have a chance to do it today with him because I was only here at lunch, on my lunch. I think this is very important for the employees, and I would like to be able to do this and try to get something improved by the next meeting. I think that I think it's very important because at this point we had HR and then we had outside legal. We don't have that anymore. A couple of parts of the procedure I'd like to see changed on this. Obviously, I'd have to get the support from the board, but at this time, I'm asking that we take a look at this. Me and Mr. S.A.D, I'd like to bring it to the board at that time. Unfortunately, I'm not ready to go with everything to give you. I have reached out to other departments, other counties, Oakland and Macomb. I reached out to St. Clair Shores. I reached out to Sterling Heights. I haven't received anything back, but I do think it's very important, and I do think it's very important for the employees to have something that they can go by because they can't go by on this right now.
So basically, Madam Chair, if I may, from Ms. Smith, all you want to do is really update this
Yes.
policy.
I want to
Okay,
update it, and I want to make sure the procedures are changed,
Right.
if need be.
Right. Madam Chair, if I may. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And
Wouldn't you want a motion? Or?
And I'd like, I'd ask for a motion for that, but I would like to put it on the next agenda too, to finalize it at that point.
Okay. Sure we can do that.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make that motion and to update it and put it on the agenda for the 26th.
Ms. Smith, you think that's enough time?
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
almost there.
All right.
I'm sorry I'm not prepared completely today because I don't have enough information that I'd like to give you guys, so
Okay.
yes, that would give me enough time.
All right.
Thank you.
So there's a motion by Mr. Kuzminski. Do you want to second that motion?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Kuzminski, seconded by Ms. Smith to grant the request and schedule the discussion and adoption of this policy for June 26th meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Now we have public comments.
No, Madam Chair, we have item 36, I think.
I'm sorry, your add-on. Vote to hire outside legal counsel to investigate grievance. Mr. Busno, you added this on.
Yes, Madam Chair. Tonight, grievance 19001 was actually going to be brought out into the open to the board, to the community. And I had reservations about, there are people who say that, actually there's a lot of people that feel there's a conflict of interest between a dual position of HR general counsel. And then there are some who may give the opinion, verbally or in letter form, that there is no conflict of interest. But I believe on this grievance issue, there is a conflict of interest. I I think this board is going to have to turn to somebody, and I think our general counsel is well qualified, but can we turn to him in a point where there's a conflict of interest? I think based on the nature of this grievance, this board should vote, and I don't know if it's 500, 1,000, you know, I know lawyer fees can rack up sometimes very quickly, but getting it, you know, or maybe we have them on retainer on the side when this grievance is heard, because I don't know who to turn to when we hear this grievance, because we need a general counsel to give an opinion on an HR action, and I'm just not comfortable with hearing this grievance without some kind of outside legal opinion or retaining somebody for the board to turn to, and maybe something turns into closed session, and I think we need that kind of opinion. And, you know, this is my first time through something like this, and again, we've talked conflict of interest, but I think there is a big conflict of interest on this grievance.
Madam Chair, I received information regarding a letter sent by our former HR director, John Brogowitz. I think the entire board got that letter. And to try to put what he said into context, I kind of typed it out. If Mr. Brogowitz had to step aside, he let the supervisor handle matters that involved him. He notes that the supervisor could operate with outside counsel, but it wasn't required. She or he could still do that if Mr. S.A.D conflicted out. No difference, but even outside counsel represented the board, not the employee. Same as now, bottom line, no conflict. That's per Mr. Brogowitz. I just wanted to read that into the record. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we all received that letter, and I think that letter said a lot more than that. I really, really do. I don't have it in front of me. I wasn't ready to. I received that letter. I don't want to drag John into this, our former HR director. That letter said a little bit more than that. But I don't know, you know, if we have a grievance hearing and I think there's some legal issues, I'm going to turn to my general counsel and say, what do you think about this, about our HR director? It's just, and what are we afraid of? We spend money on other things. I'm not big on spending money, but it might save us money. What are we afraid of? That general counsel might say, you want to know what? Your HR general counsel is completely right. We have no idea. But I'm going to need some guidance when we go through this grievance procedure, because it's the same person. It's a grievance against somebody I have to turn to and get a legal opinion on. And I mean, honestly, I don't know how to do that. I don't understand why don't we retain outside counsel just to come into a grievance hearing? It might not be that much money. You know, it may be 500, maybe 600, I don't know. But this grievance hearing is going to be heard in public, I guarantee you, and then I have to turn and say, okay, what do we do legally here? And turn to the same person that the grievance is against. I don't understand, why not just hire outside counsel? Ms. Posey, Ms. Smith have both worked for the courts. They probably could come up with a great list of names that could help us. I won't even be involved with that process. I just want to be able to turn to somebody and ask them questions about what's going on with this grievance. And I think the grievance is important and crucial when that employee is deciding to let that grievance be heard in front of the community.
Madam Chair, I would have to agree with Mr. Bossino on this, and to fairness to our Mr. S.A.D. I think it's just the fair thing to do. And you don't want to put anybody on the spot,
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, if I may, I appreciate you reaching out to myself and Ms. Smith for a recommendation, but as you know, they do not want my recommendation. I've already suggested one, and it was quickly denied. Also, members of the board had absolutely no problem without board direction hiring outside counsel to investigate an employee. So I don't understand why it's being deliberated, why it's such a big deal, what we're afraid of. It really seems like a no-brainer to me that we would hire outside legal counsel when there's a grievance filed against the HR/legal counsel, who would generally, in this circumstance, be the representative for the township. So it's confusing to me as to why it's such a big debate. I agree with you. We need to have outside legal counsel look into it, not selected by legal counsel, and move forward with the investigation. Put it to bed. If there's nothing to hide, we're not afraid of everything, everything's going the way it's supposed to, we should have no problem investigating it.
Madam Chair, I don't think anybody here is worried or afraid that something nefarious is going to be uncovered. However, I'm about due process. I fully expected this to happen tonight, and I kind of thought it was going to be a show trial. And because of my background, I have issues with things like that. Now, I know a little bit about chain of custody. I don't know where this tape has been, who's in charge of it. I wanted to hear it because tone is important. Voices are important. I was not allowed to do that. If this were in a courtroom, and these are my thoughts. If this were in a courtroom, a defense attorney would never allow that tape into evidence because of chain of custody. It has to be at a crime scene. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but at a crime scene, police look at the evidence, capture the evidence, and there is a chain that says that this has not been corrupted in any way and it's properly handled. So due process and fairness is important. I'm not one bit in fact, when we had an investigation of the other employee, there was an issue, there was a subpoena, yada, yada, next picture show, we hire somebody, and the verdict was excellent. It came back in favor of the employee. So, it was handled fairly, and in my opinion. Again, I'm not afraid of anything coming out that would be a cover-up of any kind, but it's just, I wish, Mrs. Sophomoric, but I wish we could all play nice in the sandbox, okay? We're elected to get along, okay? And we don't seem to want to get along. I'm sorry, those are my thoughts.
Madam Chair, what's going on right now is exactly why I want outside legal counsel, because I have to say, should we even be talking about a tape right now? And who do I turn to get advice from about the tape? And they're involved. And this is why I think we need to just bring outside counsel in just for this one moment, because I don't even know. I don't even think we should be talking about the tape. But is our general counsel going to give us an opinion on that? I have no idea.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I have to comment. I don't believe that the other employee was given due process and fairness by any stretch of the imagination, but we did have a positive result with the assistance of outside legal counsel. It wasn't done by our HR legal department, it was done by outside legal counsel. I spoke with Mr. Meehan. I stand behind him as somebody that can guide us through this process. He has assisted several municipalities. He has exceptional credentials. The question was asked of me last time, what would he charge for something like this? His standard rate would be $1,500 total for this. So we paid more for that on the last investigation that outside legal counsel was contracted for. So I would move again to have Mr. Meehan assist the township board with the grievance process that involves both HR and legal counsel. at $1,500, not to exceed $1,500.
Anyone else?
If I may, I don't have a problem with the outside counsel. I would just like it to be several names put in a hat that are qualified to do this type of thing and pull out the name from the hat. It wouldn't be anybody pro or con, it would be more of a fair situation, in my opinion.
Madam Chair, I would have loved that same opportunity to have been done for my employee. I would have loved 3 names to be put in a hat, me having an opinion on one of them or not, or having it all be random, but it wasn't done that way. So now suddenly we're concerned about who is the legal counsel in these situations. Mr. Assorti got to handpick the counsel that questioned my employee. Do I think that it was unbiased? Absolutely not. So again, it's pick and choose here. I don't understand why Mr. Busno, to no disrespect to you, is shocked or surprised by the previous events earlier this evening. We've been here for 3 years. It's the same thing, just another day. So move forward.
Anyone else? Comments, questions, motions?
Madam Chair? Because I would like the person that Mr. Assorti picked for the last one. I would not pick that person because of that reason. I do not want to go with Ms. Posey's because she had him help us before. I want somebody totally different, so it's fair. Ms. Smith?
Madam Chair, I can give you names. I know one name right now off the top of my head. I can't give you a price for sure. His name is Craig Lang. I worked with Craig at the county before. I can get you, if I go through all my stuff, I can probably get you some more names because I looked into all of this. If you want to pass it and look through and see if I can give you any of it, can I give you a price? I cannot give you a price. I did talk to Craig Lang about this before, not about this, but briefly. No one's going to take it until I'm able to tell them what kind of scope is. So now if this is what we do, I can tell this attorney what the scope is and get a price.
Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is possibly make a motion to have instruct the supervisor to go ahead and gather some names in order to rectify the situation on 19001. It'll be up to you to provide us with some names. That's in the form of a motion.
I would support that.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have 4 names right now off the top of my head.
Okay.
Actually, it's written here on a piece of paper because I've been taking all kinds of notes. I have a Howard Schiffman, a Richard Fanning, a Dennis Dubé, and Craig Lang.
If I may, can I just ask, are these lawyers, is their expertise labor law?
Yes. Yes. And I know
Give
this.
them to the supervisor.
Pardon me?
Give them to the I made a motion. Motion's on the floor. So what you
A
can do.
motion means there's discussion. She's still discussing.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Those are the
Ms.
4
Smith.
names that I have for you. I'd be more than happy to write it on my scribble here, and hand that over to you tomorrow morning.
Madam Chair, can we make a motion that it not exceed a certain amount so that it can move forward?
Well, I think we have to know the rates.
Scope, and we need to know the scope. Is the scope
Okay.
directly on this? So if you want me to contact them, I'd be more than happy to do that too.
Yes.
I make a suggestion that we table this or postpone this for 2 weeks while Ms. Smith gathers her information.
You guys make a decision. Holy cow.
Are there any motions?
Madam Chair, I did make that motion to go ahead and have the supervisor go ahead and get a lawyer in order to handle 19001. It was seconded by Ms. Nevers. You want to do a vote on it?
Thank you for reminding me. Motion by Mr. Krasinski, seconded by Ms. Nevers, to authorize the supervisor to find an outside labor attorney.
I would like to add to the motion, recommended by Ms. Smith.
Recommended by Ms. Smith. All in favor signify, let's do a roll call.
Okay.
Motion by Krasinski. Mr. Trustee Krasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. Motion carries. Now we will move on to public comments. This is on non-agenda items. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium.
I am Linda Clore
State
from
your name for the record. And
4630.
remember that you have a 3-minute time limit.
I know. I've been here before. Okay, Linda Clore, 46301 Meadow Lane. I'm going to keep it real short. These people that are here have been here for a long time. Last year I had 7 cement slabs marked with red X marks for replacement in front of my house. 7 of them with red X marks. I was told that they'd be done this spring. They are still not replaced, and it actually looks like a crime scene. I'm not happy about it, neither is my family. We try to keep our home and yard looking good, and we would very much like these replaced as soon as possible. I don't know if there are other people that are being treated like this, but we do need it done. So if the board could please do something and help us with that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Joe Warren, 46839 Fox Run, resident, also president, Neighbors United. I'm here tonight to thank the board for all the support during my 140-mile walk last week. It was unwavering. There wasn't a day that went by that somebody up there didn't call, text to find out how we were doing. I also want to thank Chief Phillips and Deputy Chief Monroe for making sure I was safe the whole way. I want to thank my local Union 5023 for continuously hammering all the fire departments on the way to make sure I could stop in there, hydrate, rest, be safe. I also want to thank all the rest of my brothers and sisters at the fire department who was always calling, contacting, driving out to see me. And a very special thank you to Michael Risk and Kevin Leader, who wound up walking. Mike Risk walked 40 miles with me, and Kevin Leader walked an additional 20 uphill for the final climb. And also the residents and the team that was with me to make sure I was safe. All the residents were continuously messaging us on the way to make sure we were safe, and literally it really did carry my team and myself through the whole distance. And I want to thank you all for the couple days of rest on my feet. Thank you.
Before you sit back down, what Firefighter Warren neglected to tell you was that he did this in full gear with his boots on, which is not easy to walk. He had to go to the foot doctor and get several blisters taken care of. And the best part of the whole thing is that he raised $13,000 for cancer.
Good evening, Dave Piper. My address is 15889 Van Meter. I'm here tonight as a member of the Friends of Macomb Township. We're a group that is all strictly volunteers that works for the betterment of the community. Nancy Nevers, Tim Bussino, Roger Kresminski are all members of the group. But I'm here to talk about last Friday, we gave away 6 $1,000 scholarships to some very great senior high school students that were well deserving. Our group has been doing this for years. We are able to do this because we hold several fundraisers during the year, and that's what I'm here to talk about. We have a couple of them coming up later this year that will fund next year's scholarship program. The first one is a golf outing at Sycamore Hills on Monday, August 26th. It's 18 holes of golf, cart, driving range, continental breakfast, and a delicious lunch. It's $125 a golfer, and there's also some sponsorship opportunities. And we look forward to filling that golf course this year and making more money for the scholarships. The second one is a overnight casino bus trip, which I happen to be chairing that program. It's going to be October 10th and 11th, Thursday and Friday. It will be to Soaring Eagle and Little River casinos. We will start out going to Soaring Eagle. We will stay there for 4 hours. They will give us $20 in free play and $5 food voucher. We will then continue on to Little River Casino, where your room is there for the night. They give $20 in free play and a $10 food voucher. The next morning, we get back on the bus and head back to Soaring Eagle a second time with additional $20 in free play and $5 food voucher. The cost of this is $125 per person based on double occupancy. And between the casinos, you're getting $60 in free play and $20 in food, plus your bus and your room for that price. I do have registration forms and more details if anyone is interested. I'll be available to answer any questions after the meeting if anybody wants to talk to me about it. We do have a Facebook page that hopefully we'll have all this information up there very shortly. But like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has them after the meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll try to make it as brief as I can. Christina Moody, 45624 Chateau Theory Drive. Thank you all for attending. Thank you guys for being up there. What a great turnout. And you guys are troopers, so thank you. I'll start with some things kind of sparked my interest tonight with what has been talked about. I wanted to kind of touch maybe a little bit of an idea for 22 Mile Road in Romeo Plank for that intersection. I know it was being talked about with another plan that was going on, number 15, I believe it was, on somewhere in that, I believe, for the agenda, on the agenda. The only concerns I had is some people were talking, said that would be in like 3 years to come. But I sat there at that light today, heading northbound, earlier during the day, and I had people who were flying up next to me, going up the curb just to make a right turn, and I was sitting a few cars back at the light with 7-Eleven on the one side and then the plaza on the other. So I'm not sure if we can maybe brainstorm or something, maybe beforehand. For 3 years seems a little lengthy for that area because it's been an issue for quite some time. So that's one. The other one I had is another one for the agenda tonight was number 8 that kind of brought up for the 24 Mile Road and Foss Road. If you look at a map. Oh.
Ma'am, I just want to remind you that this is a non-agenda.
No, I know. I'm getting to it, I promise. Sorry. My concern for that area was the Card Road Bridge that is historical. I was just curious if, because if that park gets built, if that roadway would get used a little more with that bridge being historical, if there would be issues to the structure of it. So, like I said, I know that it sparked the interest for some things to talk about. Then the last one, I'll leave it as a good note, okay? A meet and greet to do in the community, to the rec center here, for everybody to get to meet new companies, old companies, seeing familiar faces. So, I mean, to have time to plan, of course, not like in a week, let's do this, but for some time to plan. So that's another one. That's all I got, I promise.
Thank you.
And I hope you all have a great evening.
Anyone else?
Drive safe.
She said drive safe.
Good evening, Mark Grabo. My address is on file with the clerk. You guys have pulled off some quite unique stunts tonight, so parts of this was prepared as I had gotten information earlier this afternoon, so I'll make some changes. As a CEO and former supervisor of this township, I have listened to some of the issues recently brought up and am completely appalled at the lack of actions of this government body as an overall. You've had numerous employees and residents complain privately in an open public forum concerning some of your staff. These complaints and issues do nothing more than compel you to take actions, either to verify or dispel the actions of the person that is under contract employment by the direction of the entire government body. You guys, as the employer, are responsible by law to investigate any complaint brought forward. If you fail to do so, it's a dereliction of duty of your office, and you can, in fact, be held liable for that, each and every one of you. So, with that being said, it seems like the board has allowed itself to be handcuffed to a lofty and unprecedented contract that must at all costs be broken and destroyed. Open your ears, gang, because 4 of you sitting up there are well aware of this. The other 3 aren't. Excuse me, 5 of you are well aware of this. When this team was originally hired, it was specifically for the negotiations of labor contracts, and it was all they were supposed to do. There was 5 people in the room. God rest one of their souls. The second one is going to be packing his soap to go on the rope, and the last 3 are well aware of what happened. And those people promised to break every union in this township and win every contract that they wanted. Chew on it. 4 of you are well aware of it. 5 of you. We, the residents, have heard nothing but unrest and many questionable items, including recent resignations by staff employees. If this board allows the current environment to continue to fester and breed unrest, the charges, like I said, could be brought against people. You guys are required to follow the law. I don't care whether you're elected or not. For those of you that stand and fight, I support you. For those of you just are as bad that sit on their hands, you're just as guilty. There's an elephant in the room. You need to confront it. These employees or contractors or anyone employed by our tax dollars are required to follow the law, the same as you, Ms. Supervisor Dunn. I stand here today and demand that this board either address the issues immediately or bring an outside law enforcement agency, such as the Michigan State Police, as the Sheriff's Department is contracted, and that would be a conflict of interest. Thank you, and have a great night.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Martin. I'm here representing AFSCME 1917, the management union. I'm here tonight to address comments made in the Gazette by Treasurer Goodhue. Mrs. Goodhue, you stated that Mr. Maher and Ms. Carnes did not resign because of Mr. S.A.D. I don't believe anyone ever stated that they did. The fact is, both of those employees resigned and tried to alert the board of the work environment that exists at Town Hall. For whatever reason, you refuse to look at the situation with an open mind. A letter signed by 21 of the township management staff has done nothing to persuade you to investigate the problem that was presented. You blamed the letter on tough negotiations. Nothing could be further from the truth. The thought that 2 or 3 of our members turned the union against the board is false. That's an insult to our membership, who are all intelligent enough to decide they wanted to sign the letter or not. Thinking anything different is just putting your head in the sand. A grievance filed by a direct report to Mr. S.A.D, which clearly warranted an investigation, was turned down by this board, with you leading the way. A mistake, in our opinion, was made by this board in 2017 by combining the HR and legal positions. Our union is once again asking that these positions be separated for the good of the township. Mrs. Goodhue, you stated that there are two sides to every story. That is true, but unfortunately, you consistently only listen to one side provided to you by Mr. Sorty. As of today, you have spoken to very few of our members concerning this issue. Is Mr. Sorty even qualified to be an HR director? How would you know? He never filled out an application. He never turned in a resume. He was never required to complete all the pre-hire testing of a physical, drug screen, or a psychological exam. Those are the same tests that is required of every other employee of this township. You would think the HR director should lead by example. The problem we have here is Mr. Sorty believes he is above all the other employees in this board, or at least 4 of the members of this board allow him to believe it with no accountability at all. The management union was led to believe that Mr. Sorty would finally be evaluated with input from the employees. That was weeks ago. Has Mr. Sorty already talked you out of that one too, Mrs. Goodhue? A few meetings back, it was stated that major changes are coming to 2020. We also believe that to be true. Unfortunately, waiting until 2020 could be too late. We have lost 3 management members, while yet others are actively seeking other employment. Please listen to your management team, what your management team is telling you. Please separate these 2 positions. Your employees and the people we all serve deserve better. Thank you.
Jim Gillis, everything's been covered, I was going to say, including the last item. I give the board credit for bringing in outside counsel for this grievance thing, but it just confirms what I said the last couple meetings. You need to separate the 2 roles and have a dedicated HR director and a dedicated legal counsel. You can see the problems we're having, and apparently they still continue to have. So with all that covered, I got the draft from Ms. Goodhue for the ethics ordinance when I came in tonight, so I haven't had a chance to really study it. But I do need some clarification, because the last workshop meeting we had, we presented the final draft to you. And at that time, Mr. Sorty brought up the provision about the municipal civil infraction, whatever, and he said he came to the table after the meeting ended and told our committee that he'd be willing to work with us on it. I haven't heard from him. So I don't know, is this something that, I'd like to get the electronic version too, if I could. If you could send me that. Are we supposed to incorporate this into the other ordinance, or are you throwing out what we submitted and this is all you're going to do? I don't know. We don't have to answer it now. I know it's getting late, but if you could email me and ask me, I will send what you gave me to the committee members in the morning. But I just need clarification. What do you want from us? Because I was under the impression that we gave you basically our final product with the understanding and discussion that you were going to amend it where it needed to be amended. There was some questions as far as procedure. We understand that. So I just need some clarification on that. If you could get with me on that, I'll make sure the committee gets, but I know they're going to ask me, okay, what do we do with this? So if you could get that to me, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Paul Ruggieri, address on file with the clerk's office. I don't see how any one of you board members sitting up there can't see that this is a conflict of interest with an HR and a legal counsel person as in the same position. It's like this officer here giving me a speeding ticket. I go to court to fight it, and lo and behold, this fine gentleman officer is also the judge. How can you not see that? The 4 of you's old guards sitting up there. How can you not see that this is a conflict of interest? It's beyond me. Get new glasses, take the blinders off, whatever you have to do. it's a conflict of interest. It needs to be separated. Get a first-year law student, you do just as good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We will move on to trustees' comments.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, but I have a few things that I have to say here. As Mr. Piper mentioned, last Friday evening, the Friends of Macomb Foundation met to award the 6 latest recipients of our $1,000 scholarships. All were women, and their names, colleges, and their disciplines are the following: Lauren Babowski, Harvard University, Neurology; Hannah Lerner, University of Detroit, Physician's Assistant; Kendall Carlin, Michigan State University, Finance; Caitlin Palch, Hope College, Physician's Assistant; Samantha Radman, University of Michigan, Biochem, Pre-Med, with the hope to work with patients at St. Jude's Hospital; and Angelina Vita, I'm not sure, University of Michigan, Pharmacy. 4 of the 6 recipients were in attendance with their parents and loved ones. Portions of their essays were read, explaining what inspired their decisions and the careers they hope to achieve. It was a lovely evening, and I'm very, very proud of all of the recipients. Dave, can you tell me how many applied? I can't remember. It was like 60 or something? 63, thank you. And also tonight, I'd like to give a progress report about my promise to talk to every salaried management union member who signed the letter given to each board member regarding Mr. Assorti. Obviously, I've been quite involved with our ethics ordinance. I've only spoken to 5 individuals. It has gone a great deal slower than I've anticipated, with between personal responsibilities of mine and the many hours dedicated to the important work regarding ethics ordinance. Those interviews will continue in earnest next week. But I also want to say that there was no covert intent to go off and work on the ethic ordinance. It's just that Mrs. Goodhue and I felt this was important. We discussed it at MTA, we talked about it, we think it's an issue whose time has come, and we understand the amount of time spent on the initial work product from the committee. As everybody stated, it was taken a little bit from this, am I right? A little bit from New Haven or wherever, but we felt it needed to be Macomb Township specific, and hence our effort in that regard. If I'm going to put my imprimatur on it, I would like it to be Township specific. Let's see what else. I guess that's all, thankfully.
Yes, Madam Chair. I know it's late, but it's important to be said. I want to talk about the theme tonight about conflict of interest and you know, as a board member, what to do when you need legal advice. We talked about one situation tonight, but there was a letter sent to our supervisor this week. It's FOIable, so anybody can FOIA it. And the letter, although the letter was pointed at another board member, I was mentioned, it seemed to be a letter from a lawyer. It was a letter from a lawyer. The tone of it seemed to be to tell the board member, or a couple board members, to be quiet. And I think somebody else is going to bring this up. And it was in regards to our HR legal counsel. And again, I'm at a point I don't know what to do. Now I got lawyers saying, hey, board members need to tone it down. We're not going to litigate yet, but we may sue you later if you don't stop this. And the conflict of interest is at an all-time high. And one of the things that I remember, the first, the only training I went to, Macomb or Michigan Township Association, and one of the reasons, to be honest, it seemed like everything that was pushed at the training was your loyalty is to the board and not the residents. It's to the board, to the board, to the board. And you know, and that's why I haven't been to many of those trainings. But one of the things they did say, it's important for the board, as board members, to be able to obtain that counsel at those moments. Okay, I don't think this letter holds any weight, but it was signed by an attorney, a former judge, and it was basically telling a couple board members, and I think Ms. Posey is going to speak to this too, to be quiet up here and stop it. And so, as our supervisor and as this board, I think we need outside counsel for those moments too, because I don't know where to go. And I may have to go get outside counsel and talk to this board about it. Again, the letter was pointed at another board member, but there was comments about me too. And it was basically, be quiet, quit doing what you're doing, okay? And again, I hope Ms. Posey is going to talk to it too, but I don't appreciate that kind of letter. I don't appreciate an attorney sending me something to telling me to be quiet up here as an elected official, but.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, now that Mr. Busno brought that up, I disagree. I don't feel it was directed to you and to Christie. I felt it was addressed to the whole board. And I have a problem with that. So I think it was addressed to the whole board. Yes, certain names were mentioned to it, but I think it was addressed to the whole board, and I was put back by it. I know I'm not elected. I know I was appointed by the board. And as a board trustee, we're here to serve the residents of Macomb Township. I believe that we are only as good, we can only do our job as well as the employees that work for us to help us. We're only as good as the employees. If there's a problem, we need to fix it. I swore I wasn't going to get on a soapbox, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may. One item to start off is that I would like to have Clerk Posey put on for the July 10 meeting to have legal HR director to create a new position in Human Resources Department. It shall be called a Human Resources Manager. It would be a non-union position. The legal HR director will create a position description and present it at that time. Number 2. Did you get that, Ms. Posey? Put that on for the 10th? Okay, thank you. Also, there was a comment made at the last board meeting concerning a possible overrun on the sewers or on a particular sewers of a contract. And it really wasn't an overrun. It was just a problem that what they thought was in the ground was not in the ground, or what was in the ground was there now. And it went from 370 to 423. And that difference actually was covered by our contingency, which we have in our total project. Is that correct, Jim?
I'm sorry, what is the project you were talking about?
This is one on the fire station on 23. There was a comment made about our sewers. There was a difference of like $67,000 from 360 to 423.
That was the difference between what was estimated.
Right.
And then after the design was done, what the bid came in
Right.
from the contractor, yes.
And also, the $800,000 that you have in your contingencies is for special problems like this. And I think there's probably going to be some more coming in there. Because I know in my days when I was back working at Chrysler, we had millions in there because we didn't know what was going to happen when we were doing something within a plant. And that was huge. So there was a big difference. So the other thing too, Madam Chair, if I may, just on the veterans, is that Flag Day is Friday the 14th. If you have a flag, please display it. Also, just a shout out to the 75th anniversary of D-Day on June the 6th for the World War II veterans. I want to thank you you guys are the greatest generations of what you did for us. Also, to add to Dave on the scholarships, we've been doing this over 14 years, so we've given out a lot of money through the foundation. Also on 22 Mile, the young lady was talking about in card. Those belong to the county. That's their job to do whatever they want to on those particular roads. We've requested some roads to be on our 19 and 20 that we sent to the county, Jim, if I may, on what we sent to the county to have 22 Mile and also card. That's their jurisdiction. We have nothing to do with that, correct?
The 22 Mile Road and Romeo Plank intersection is part of the road widening that will be done once 23 Mile Road is done, yes.
Correct. So whatever they're gonna do, they're gonna do. That's their.
It's part of the federal aid program.
Correct. And also on the bridge, which has been out for years, that, on Card Road there.
Yeah, that bridge has been out so long that it's not eligible for state money, so
Right.
it would be all local money. So the estimate that we've gotten from the county is $5 million. 60% of that would be on the township, 40% would be on the county.
5 million.
5 million was the estimate that I received a couple of months ago from them.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you. Treasurer's comments.
In the essence of time, I pass this evening. Thank you.
Clerk's comments.
As mentioned by Trustee Bussino, the Board of Trustees was forwarded a letter from Mr. Thomas DeSorti's attorney through the supervisor. In my opinion, the letter strongly suggests that I or any other board member be prevented from exposing our concerns with regard to township affairs and our employees. First and foremost, I will not be intimidated by a baseless and frivolous letter, as it is my duty and obligation to raise important questions and bring issues to the forefront and follow the OMA's core purpose, the promotion of openness in government. The information I provided was put on public record the meeting prior by employees, union representatives, and residents. There was no discussion of dismissal, suspension, disciplining of an employee, or a personal evaluation, which allows for closed session. The agenda item was a request for outside counsel to conduct an investigation on allegations of a conquer and control environment in Town Hall, which has resulted in 2 high-level department heads resigning and raising significant concerns. In fact, I am standing behind the mission statement cited on the Human Resources webpage that states, "Our mission is to promote an environment that is characterized by the fair and consistent treatment of all employees, open communication, personnel accountability, trust, and mutual respect." Also, I would like to set the record straight on statements made by Treasurer Goodhue and Mr. Assorti's attorney with regards to the agenda item I added last meeting. First, I did not violate my own policy. Any policy adopted by this board is a township policy, not a clerk policy. In fact, what was adopted was simply recommended rules and procedures governing the township board agenda. There have been numerous add-ons at the beginning of meetings which have been approved without question, including the BPI contract extension and, ironically, the adoption of the employee agreement between the township and Thomas Assorti. In fact, item number 19A on tonight's agenda at Treasurer Goodhue's request was added to the agenda past the recommended deadline. Apparently, for certain board members, the rules are different, significantly different. The Michigan Township Association booklet provided to all the trustees indicate no law actually requires a meeting agenda. A tentative meeting agenda may be developed in advance of a regular meeting, but the board determines the final agenda at the meeting. I stand by my comments at board meetings as well as my efforts to conduct a review of Mr. Assorti's performance per the agreement, and I will vigorously defend myself against any threat of litigation that is filed regarding this matter. I was elected to represent the Macomb Township residents and the employees, and for me, paying attention is not an option.
Supervisor's comments. The only thing I wanted to talk about was Mr. Joseph Warren and his walk to Grand Rapids, and what a unique experience that was to follow his progress. I put it on my Facebook page, and even the Michigan Township Association commented on it, that it was a very unique concept. I congratulate him again, even though he's gone. That's all I have, and that concludes the business
Madam
for this
Chair.
evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, excuse me. I may be out of order here, and I hope I am not, and I know it's late, but I'm thinking about remarks by both Mr. Busnow, by Ms. Smith, and by Ms. Posey. I believe the letter was sent because Mr. S.A.D's good name was mentioned in open session. It was not a fair, it would never have been done to any other employee. We're talking due process and basic fairness, and that didn't happen, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Krasinski,
Support.
supported by Ms. Goodhue to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay.
Guess I
We
should
are
read it.
adjourned.